to tell me when you hear me, because you should be able to hear me right now. Let me move y'all. All right. Evening, everyone. Welcome to this nice. What date is it? What day is it today of the week? Calendar 28 December, Wednesday. Perfect. It's harder to track what date is it today because I'm in a vacation period, so I have some time off. But great to have you all here. We are almost 600 people. Like, wow, that is 2 times more than it was previous stream. Really nice to have you all here. Very welcome. Write who you are, what you do, where you from. Let's get to know each other. Slowly but surely, I'm getting to know my community. I already recognize you by nicknames, and it is amazing. Sveikas, I see that we have some people from Lithuania, Sweden. Very nice, welcome. Awesome intro music. Yes, it's royalty-free music. I just Googled it. Epic. Best music ever. Yes, I mean, the congratulations of 50,000 guys is mostly goes out to you because, as I said, when I got, what is it? Like, as I said, when I got like a first 1,000 subscribers, then 5,000, then 10,000 and whatnot, the thanks for the having subscriptions and whatnot and having some kind of growth, it all comes to you, right? Because you're doing the actual job. You're watching the content, you're sharing, you're liking, you're doing everything that can help the YouTube algorithm. I have no control over it. So more than half of what's being spread around is thanks to you continuing watching this channel. So big thanks and congratulations for 50,000 to you, because I am the same as I did when I was having like 2 subscribers, 100 subscribers, and so on. I'm just a guy that's just yelling at the camera here or at the map, and some people come to like it and enjoy it, and I'm very happy for it. US, Canada, amazing. Welcome. You are probably the strongest supporters of my channel. I appreciate that a lot. It's actually funny that not so many Europeans are watching me. I was expecting, because like I always try to emphasize that I'm trying to bring some kind of European perspective, that this would also mean that some of the Europeans, but I guess it's one of those things that we don't really want to watch the things that we already know. So Kosovo. Ooh, man. I hope you're doing fine. I don't know what Serbia is up to, but I really hope that Kosovo is gonna do fine. I mean, if Serbia will do anything funny, then what was it? The fuck around and find out. That was the saying. So I think the Serbians are now getting really close to find out part, if they would start doing anything to Kosovo again. And actually, if I'm starting talking about Serbia, this is a good point for me to revise some of the positions that I was telling you about. So the first thing to start talking about is this: for a longer time, you asked me like, well, what it's going to be? Will Ukraine take Donbass first or Crimea first? And I always said that it's going to be Crimea first. And the idea was that Ukraine takes Crimea, and then Donbass, Bakhmut is fine. Bakhmut indeed is fine. That Donbass, because after losing of Crimea, it would be such a strong psychological impact on the Russian mentality, that they would start basically eating each other's, like ripping into each other's throats inside Russia, that would essentially break any kind of chain of command for Donbass, and then Ukraine would have a much easier job recapturing both Donetsk and Luhansk. And I've looked back at that statement, and I want to adjust some of the things, because I thought about things, and I hope you will allow me to change some of the things. What I understood is that I violated the first and most important rule, and like a rule of thumb that I'm using on this channel, and that basically I'm advising the same rule to you. So whenever you're thinking about like what will happen in Russia, like do they finally understand? Because the rule goes, do not expect anything of Russians. Like, don't expect that they will do anything. Don't expect that they will realize how like making doing genocide is not very nice, that bombing civilian infrastructure is not nice, that maybe they should try to realize that. And the same kind of thought was for me here, that I thought that maybe after Crimea that the Russians will start thinking about something, but I think it's just giving way too much credit to the Russians, and I think it's a little bit premature. And this is where I draw the parallels with Serbia. Because if you remember, Serbia did a lot of not very nice things during the Balkan Wars. I mean, like when your country's names and genocide goes hand in hand, it's usually not very nice, right? And what I've seen also, we've seen very much in Serbia, is that a lot of Serbians, not all, but quite a lot, Serbians still haven't reflected that much on the fact that what they did was maybe not the best, that it wasn't really nice, that they shouldn't really, try to project their power and enforce their will on other nations. And this is exactly where I felt that I was violating my expectations of Russians. That I'm expecting somewhere deep down in myself as well, that at some point, like they will finally realize that maybe they don't even realize that what they're doing is bad, but at least they will realize that what is being like that they're losing the war in Ukraine at least, and then they're gonna start blaming each other. But as we see that Serbia, they don't really care about the fact that if they will start doing fucking around with Kosovo, then they're gonna get basically their forces wiped out, aka Serbian bombings 2.0. And the fact that they're still trying to project their power, try to fuck around some more with Kosovo and their neighbors, just tells me that maybe it's not given. So that's why I think good question, Polly. I will come back to this second. So that's why I think I must revise my position that the Russian internal affairs will like the perception of this war in Ukraine and the internal conflict will change significantly after the loss of Crimea. So from now on, I'm saying it's not. You are too biased. Biased towards what? Can you clarify, please? It's Lamoy Thomas. Like, if I'm biased towards Ukraine winning this war, yes, I am. All right. So good questions. Do I think that Russia will be expelled from UN? No. We need to understand that there is still no political will inside of the Western societies to get changes done, especially on the UN level. Firstly, UN as an organization, I mean, the General Assembly of the UN is pretty good. That it's a talking platform. It's like the least that person can do is like people coming together and discussing stuff and so on. And it doesn't really have a lot of power, so it's doing its job. It's fine. It's good. It's a nice thing to have some kind of place where countries can come up and provide whatever bullshit resolutions they want. Fine. But then we go to the Security Council perspective. And Security Council, firstly, it violates the whole principle and idea of democracy that we are even saying, right? One of the biggest arguments against Russia essentially invading Ukraine is that if Russia wins, we're gonna get back in the world where dominant big powers are gonna start deciding. We're gonna have the spheres of influence, and dominant big powers are gonna start deciding how the world should work and how the world should operate. my question to that extent is, well, what the fuck is the Security Council then? If it's not just certain big powers coming together and deciding on some kind of security issues or conflict on how they should be resolved. So the idea of Security Council as being this like a smaller elite part of the club that actually have some kind of power within the UN umbrella is a little bit of bullshit, to be honest, right? So we need to understand that in the core of it, right, we were stating is like, oh, we don't want to have major powers deciding how certain countries should develop, but we also have the UN Security Council where certain powers decide how other countries should act. So I think the Security Council doesn't play a role. I think it's useless, and I think it's completely discredited itself as a reasonable thing. It's always been like a leeway of a UN umbrella, supposedly, to enforce the will of certain big powers. And I don't think that it's a good system. I don't think it's a fair system. And I don't think it should exist. And I think with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the correct solution would be complete dissolution of the UN Security Council. I will hear your arguments against it. Please write them in chat. And also, if you want to ask me in the comments, please use the @Ukraine Matters so I see it highlighted and then I can read it through. Is it a relatively good thing in Russia, Bakhmut, than in Zaporizhia? Yes and no. I will talk about the map just a little bit later, so we're going to get back to it. Bakhmut is fine. Yes, yes, yes. You are too biased towards reality and facts. Please compensate by including some nonsense and lies. Thank you. Okay. Well, okay, I am out of nonsense, guys. Can you feed me, please, some nonsense? If it's not funny, don't feed it. It must be fucking funny. I'm the fucking joke police today, so it's 50,000 special stream. So if you propose non-funny nonsense, insta ban. Absolutely. Andrew Green, I've met Serbs. They spend their whole lives living in total denial of everything that has happened. They still think that they are victims and NATO was the aggressor. They started 4 wars and lost. Pretty much. Again, I don't say that every Serb is like that. I'm pretty sure, like, I've met people from Serbia that are completely fine, and they realize that they just try to fuck around and found out. But there is definitely a strong majority that are doing that. Yes, the vetoes should destroy the proper function of UN. Correct. So if they want to have Security Council, yes, but make it, I don't know, rotational, remove veto powers, or like remove a proper approval by the General Assembly, something like this, a proper democracy, whatever. If major Russian city is occupied by a foreign country, Russians media will spin that in everything is fine, no need to worry. Yeah, I mean, like, Russian media can spin everything in any way they want. Kelendan, will Ukraine energy and critical infrastructure make it through the winter? Yes. The one Patriot battery is not enough. Correct. But we need to understand that it's not just Patriot. Like, air defense, benefits of air defense is layered. So the more air defense there are, the more layers of different air defense assets there are, the tougher the air defense is. And we need to understand that current Ukrainian air defense that is shooting down 80 to 90% of missiles is freaking amazing. It's like any air defense in the world would be like, whoa, 80 to 90%, that is really good. And there are certain air defense types that are shooting down 100% of whatever Russia is throwing at them. So I think Ukraine will get through the winter fine. The generators has been already supplied in pretty strong like amounts. And I am getting like notifications that even in the smaller villages in Ukraine, they have these unbreakability points where at least people can come in, charge stuff from the generators, get some warmth. So it's not all doom and gloom. Like, Ukraine is definitely, obviously, being shot by missiles is a little bit inhumane. Do you agree that in the long term you need allies inside Russia to change Russian society? I don't give a shit what the fuck happens with Russia. Like, they can be a wall and they can boil inside their own piss, like, for what I care. I don't care if they change or not change. Does not matter. It's their fucking problem. Like I think until they solve that shit out on them by themselves, they found their own paths, their own leaders, and they decide that they really want democracy. We shouldn't fucking interfere. We should just say this is it's a danger zone over there. Do not touch until they realize what's happening. So I don't think it's our job to fix Russia. I think it's Russia's job to fix Russia first and foremost. We can definitely help, but nothing is showing so far. Tom Wright, coming from Slovenia and having interacted with a lot of Serbs in my life, the general impression is that they tend to have something to prove, a chip on their shoulder, like Russia. Yeah. Raven 7, what do you think of Finland's recent moves to suggest supplying Leopards to Ukraine? Okay, so media again is blowing shit out of proportion. Guys, I know this is spreading like wildfire. Firstly, no Finnish official, not only the proposition of supplying, having Finland essentially being a first runner and supplying some of their Leopard tanks to Ukraine and then getting like a combined European aspect was proposed by one MP, not a member of the government. I'm not sure even which party he was part of. But the point is, it was proposed by just one MP of the Finnish parliament. Like, give a perspective. Like, if a member of the House, like, for example, someone that would be, I don't know, let's call it Caroline, and let's call her, like, add some name, like, let's Caroline. Okay, never mind. But let's call it Major Yellow. Let's put it her this way. So, and this Caroline Major Yellow, so she says that the world should abandon all vaccines. Now, does this mean that now the US policy and the US proposal is to abandon all vaccines? So one member of the Finnish parliament is not cutting it for me, but it's being blown out of the proportion. So yeah. That's the long answer to a short question. Yash, thanks so much for $5. Is it bucks? Yeah, it's bucks. David Oliver, maybe there are Zaporizhia offensive, so everyone moves down south, then the real offensive happens in the north, like Kherson offensive has actually Kharkiv offensive. There are problems with that. For what? The northern offensive, it's nice. It's very nice because when and if northern offensive happens, essentially Ukraine takes off the pressure of Bakhmut, right? Because at that moment, the whole position, like the Russians will be scrambling to defend Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, and then Bakhmut becomes like the lesser of the worries. The thing is that Bakhmut doesn't really care. Like it's a meat grinder for Russians. Like for some reason, the Russians decided that they want to die in hundreds and thousands for the city of Bakhmut. That is not like that important for Ukrainians in a strategic sense, but they just want to take it so bad. So it just becomes like essentially a concentration point of efforts. And Ukrainians saying, well, goody. So we're able to find far from strategic danger and also able to destroy a lot of Russians. So taking pressure of Bakhmut, is it that important? Maybe. The southern offensive, however, when successful, pretty much eliminates the whole southern front line, like everything, Kherson, everything gets completely liberated. And it basically isolates Crimea and starts the Kherson 2.0 Crimea edition. So the benefits of executing southern offensive, the strategic benefits, are leagues ahead of whatever benefits can be achieved by securing the North Luhansk area. That is from what analysts I've heard, and that's why I think that the offensive is still going to be in the south. Okay, Yurio. The Security Council is just to get nukes to never fire against each other. I'm not sure even Security Council really does that job. Like, think about this, Christian. If Putin would really want to nuke someone, would participation in the Security Council stop him? Like, really want it? Like, he doesn't, but like, imagine if he would really want it. Like, would he care about the Security Council? No. Next question. How bad Taz is asking? No. Polycount Taz, okay, is asking. Next question. How bad is weather and ground conditions in Ukraine for the counteroffensive now? It's shit. It's pretty bad. Like, the weather is definitely playing in Russian favor, so we need to be honest about this. So it's unfortunately pretty bad. The current projections say that the weather is not going to get into zeros, and I've checked like around the 2nd of January. So in the area around Melitopol, the temperature is going to be around like 10 degrees during the day. Like, so it's like plus 10, I mean. Plus 10 degrees Celsius is super warm. It's like literally spring. So unfortunately, so far, the weather is completely denying any kind of large-scale offensive possibilities. That is the Finns supplying tanks. Just saw. I fully agree with the Union Security Council. I have watched so many meetings and they're pointless. They solve nothing. Correct? Yes. JC, the music man, you're correct. Russia must be analyzed by its actions because they always lie and only seek to gain for themselves. I mean, I'm really glad that most of the world finally understands this. Do you believe in atheism? That statement doesn't make sense. Atheism is the how do we say, is a rejection of faith. Like, you cannot believe in rejection of faith. That statement doesn't make sense. Do you think a balkanized Russia would be better for European and world security, or should current borders of Russia persist? I feel this is where the West disagrees with Ukraine the most. I think the best Russia is denuclearized Russia. And after that, they can do whatever the fuck they want. If they want to stay whole, they can stay whole. If they want to break up, they can break up. I don't think it's up to us to decide what is the format Russia is going to have. It's for the Russians. I just think that we should just remove the threat from them. Like, denuclearization of Russia would be the best outcome for the world that we can have. It's my view. Yes. Special military operation is total success. Yes, it is. Completely. Like, Kellen Dunn, Russia is moving equipment from east to Ukraine, leaving the east vulnerable. Do you think China will take back Manchuria at some point? China doesn't need to do anything. China already knows that by the end of this conflict, Russia will just basically fall into their lap. Like, Russia is not having any friends. They are already pretty much dependent on China, on pretty much everything. China will start leveraging their power once everything is going to start biting into Russia. They don't need to they don't need to capture, they don't need to use military, nothing like this. Like, Russia is going to be happy to give Manchuria back to China at some point. It's a little known fact that Putin moonlights as a nightclub comic, maybe. Do you think Russia will try to take over the ammo storage in Transnistria? They're not going to get to Transnistria. What? What? Wait, Russia already controls Transnistria. What? I don't understand the question. Like, Transnistria is already controlled by Russian troops. They don't have supplies for any kind of war. That's why they are not doing any kind of military activity, because it would be instant loss. But what? Phil Lee, I think the RF, I would guess it's the Russian Federation, mission to the United Nations should be PNG'd and the USRC dissolved while they aren't there to veto. I mean, like, for me, the UN Security Council, I already said, doesn't make sense. So if it starts with Russia, whatever, sure. On the macro side of things, how long do you think the war goes for? Another 1-3 years? You think it ends one day as a surprise with Putin's killed? Also, thoughts on Medvedev 23rd? Medvedev 23rd letter. Okay, so quickly on Medvedev 23rd, like, don't use drugs, kids. Drugs bad. Don't. That's what I can say about Medvedev's speech. Second, about the how long the war is gonna go, I tend to agree with General Ben Hodges. He has been very accurate in his predictions. The only thing that he stated that wasn't in the way that he stated so far was that his assumptions were that US will supply Ukraine with everything that Ukraine needs. And as far as we can see, it doesn't really happen. Like, for some reason, there are still fears inside of Biden's administration, not fears of Russia, but the fears of essentially uncontrolled dissolution of Russia and nukes getting into the hands of unpredictable parties. So essentially endangering the world. That's basically the biggest fear that they have right now. But despite that, I overall believe that General Ben Hodges' prognosis is quite correct. He was saying that Ukraine will be in Crimea at the end of August. I think because there is not sufficient equipment supplied and the weather during the winter is kind of bad, I believe that this prognosis will be moved and we might see the war continue through the whole next year. But after that, I would say 2020, early 2024. I would think that the probably spring offensive will be the last, like before the summer 2024. That is based essentially on the assumptions and basis of the General Ben Hodges, adjusted for the fact that Ukraine is still not getting all of the equipment that it needs. Crimea by mid-January, your thoughts? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Crimea is already very, very bad position, right? They're throwing power to supply it, but there are more and more reports coming in that Crimea is really crumbling. Like, they're really trying to support those troops, like throwing, but the position is just pretty bad. And I definitely think that mid-January Crimea is very much a possibility. Yeah, definitely. Taz, air defense in Russia is the best, especially around Engels. Am I wrong with geography? Nope. Like, air defense, what air defense doing? I don't know. Bogdan. Oh, hello, Bogdan again. I've met this Ukrainian woman siding with Putin and Putin-affiliated media. She claimed Genghis Khan had not invaded Europe, Russia, because Mongols' horses were too short for shooting hours. Yeah. I mean, like, guys, there's always, like, people say usually around like 3 to 4%. I think about 10%. So there's about 10% at least, like, population that have really weird and fringe perceptives. If we're talking this pro-Russian narrative, I would expect that there is probably a good 10% of Ukrainians that are still believing that shit. I mean, BBC, like, holy shit, have you heard that BBC did like an overview, like, we're speaking with the pro-Russian Ukrainians about the war in Ukraine. Holy shit. Like, that was such a big, like, I sometimes really don't get the BBC stance on the fact that they need to get like both sides, despite one side being completely wrong. It's like when the vaccines was, oh, you asked me for bullshit. There we go. Nonsense. So nonsense. BBC putting in the same studio like a vaccine denier and a scientist that is studying vaccines, and they're saying, they're both equal in their opinions. So that is nonsense. And that is basically the same here. When we have some kind of fringe group that is ready to essentially forgive any kind of war crime just because they are true believers in fascism, and then it's like, okay, they're probably as equal in opinion as the other Ukrainians that want to resist Russian aggression. That is a major nonsense. Like, so sometimes BBC is surprising me so much. As more and more Russians lose life or limbs in Ukraine, the stronger Russian public opinion will go to the fighting. Otherwise, it all losses would have been for nothing. I mean, that's the current stage, Gerard. That's literally the current stage. The mantra that they are repeating themselves right now, the most popular mantra that I'm hearing when I'm looking at the people, talking on the streets and so on, is that, well, if we're doing it, that means like, it's right that we should do it. It's the same mantra. Is that like we couldn't be wrong, like we wouldn't do it for nothing, right? So that's the mantra that they're having right now. Oh my god, guys, by the way, did you know that we're 2,600 people right now on stream? That is like a lot. Like, I know numbers, I've studied numbers, and 2,600 is a big number. It's bigger than 300 that we had last stream. So good job. Thank you so much. So, and if you share the stream, the link to this stream, share it in your social media, I don't know, like, subscribe, that all of these things, it all helps so we can get more views, so we can all celebrate. Again, this is a nice congratulations stream. We have really two really big important events. First one is that that we got 50,000 subscribers, which is amazing. And I already started the stream by saying that most of it thanks to you, because it is you, the viewers, who are watching me, liking, subscribing, sharing this links to the stream so other people can see. That's actually the hardest job to do, because anyone can turn on camera and start talking nonsense, especially prominent nonsense such as Russian propaganda. Oh my God, Konashenkov, the talking head from the Russian state media, he can make like millions just like, submitting text to him so he can talk any kind of nonsense. He can make a career out of it. So that was, but 50,000 is a big thing. So congratulations on that. And the second big thing is our charity stream. So we finished our stream, and the total final amount that went to the Razum Foundation for all the humanitarian aid during this Christmas and New Year's for Ukrainians ended up being $12,598.02. That is more than impressive. That is completely beyond my understanding. Because think about it this way, guys. So I'm like a half a year ago, I'm a no-name guy. Like, to be honest, I'm still a no-name if we're looking at like, YouTube recognition. But I'm able to do something, and I'm able to motivate and do something good. And if anything, the fact that we were able to help and support with $12,598, that is more than like, that's 1,200% more than I was hoping for. That is just blows my mind. I went to other room where my wife was sitting, and I said, like, Natalia, do you know that like we were able to gather 12,000 for charity, 12,598.02 for charity? And she was like, so super thanks. I think it was great. We'll see if we're gonna do some kind of charity more, but I definitely would like to use more help to help Ukraine. So, and that is really good. I'm really happy. I'm really happy. Sai, welcome to Brother's Arms. Level 70 asks, how is Russia shelling Kherson? How is Russia shelling Kherson? Ukrainian artillery is supposed to have a longer range than Russia's. Do you think that Russia's artillery should been pushed out of range? Yes, but also so war is difficult. The enemy, like, the enemy is not just sitting there waiting for you to shell their artillery. Most of the artillery brigades will tell you that the artillery usually works like this. They arrive, they deploy their artillery, they shoot a certain number of shells, and after that they scatter, or at least they move to some other pre-prepared positions. Especially something like Grads, for example, Russian, they're just trucks with a lot of missiles on them. So after they're loaded somewhere, they just arrive to the shooting positions with the numbers of, like 15, 20 trucks or something, like 10 trucks, whatever. And then just take a little bit of a time to just launch like 40 missiles, or like how many missiles each Grads are having, and like, how do you push that out? How do you push a truck with a lot of missiles not driving into the artillery range and then shooting the city center? That's the problem. That's the problem. Like, smaller artillery that is usually towed by trucks is also a possibility. But, it's like artillery is not just the ones that are shelling with shells. It's also the missiles. Rockets. Like, I always mix them apart. All right, let's see. I've missed probably a lot. Ooh, I need to answer a lot of questions. Oh my God. Wow, chat, I'm going on a rant. In case Belarus decides to join Russia at one, who do you think will have the balls to step in military to help Ukrainian army? No one. Ukraine is on its own. Everyone has already decided that in this war, Ukraine is on its own. Even if Iran and North Korea send their troops, no one is going to help Ukraine. Do you think that Deutsche Bank is funneling funds to Serbia from Putin? It's possible. Like, banks have known to be like dirty money. Like, even Denmark, like, we have Danish Danske Bank that was involved in a huge corruption scheme with the Russian dirty assets. Where do you think that money went that they laundered? Like, that money that Danish bank, that Danske Bank, has been laundering years before is basically what was sponsoring this war happening right now. Nord Stream 3, hello chat, hello, Nord Stream 3. Never gonna happen, by the way. Zelensky the Great. Do you have a religion or do you believe in atheism? Love for Singapore. You cannot believe atheism. That's not a thing. Like, you cannot believe in rejection of religion. That's not how atheism works. Kellen Dunn, is UA force close to Kremina? How is Opitne near Bakhmut? Okay, should we do map? Let's do map. I know you want map. Let's do map. Everyone loves map. I also love map. All right, map. Oh, no. There we go. All right. So, I didn't want to do an update video today just because most of activity is still happening, in the gray zones around the areas that I told you yesterday, but we got some additional news here and there. So first things first, around this northern part, maybe I'm actually going to just cut this piece out and make it a separate video after all. But at this northern part, I told you about the fact that Russia is trying to do some kind of destructive attacks, and that's what it's basically doing. And we know that apparently this might be working because Ukrainian attacks towards the east has been reported to be ceasing. So either they redeployed some of the forces here, which is a possibility to help stop these attacks, but we definitely know that the advancements towards Nizhny Duvyanka so far has been more or less ceased. So yeah, I would say that maybe Russian reinforcements that arrived here is actually helping a lot. So Chervona Popivka, there was recently a Russian counterattack into Chervona Popivka. As far as I've heard, the city is now back to being gray. I mean, it's not really, it wasn't really fully captured. Like, how we put it? It was captured or almost captured by Ukraine at one point, but because it's a gray zone and they don't have still defensive positions there, right now it's essentially, I assume that it's split in half. This is not, however, around Dibrova over here. So in Dibrova, and the situation has been reporting that it's becoming more and more like I've got another confirmation that it's been essentially either fully or almost fully liberated by Ukrainians. And fighting is happening very close to Kreminna. The Russians have supplied additional troops towards Kreminna, but the reports are that even with reinforcements, they only help so much because the Ukrainian positions are being are really good and being continuously strengthened in the area. So Kreminna is definitely not having it easy for the Russians, and Ukrainians are trying to do whatever they can. Bakhmut, Bakhmut is fine. Firstly, let's get off with this. There was a counterattack of Russians. Ukrainians pushed essentially the Russians almost completely out of Opitne, but then Russians counterattacked, and now Opitne is essentially split in half. As I will wait. I told you about 2,000 views. Well, I lied, guys. I looked at the wrong number. I looked at the wrong numbers. We are actually just 1,000. Not 2,600. Unfortunately. But let's continue. So Opitne is pretty much split in half. That's the short of it. And the fighting is still happening this west of Andriivka. This is where Russians trying to push. But remember, on the south side, what we're looking for essentially is if Russians will take Klishivka, if Russians will have full control of Opitne, and then the last point, if they will be able to capture like Hill, that is like this a little bit north and to the west of Klishivka and to the west of Opitne. That's pretty much like the point of interest that would make essentially the southern road not operational anymore. Therefore, so far things are fine. Opitne holds, Klishivka holds. It's good. On the north side, Russians are trying to expand the Yakovlivka direction. Vesela is not going to hold. This one here. It's not going to hold. It's indefensible positions. But if you can see just north of Vesela, there is this hill over here. And this is where expected that Ukrainians will set up defensive positions. So Vesela is kind of in a valley. So going into valley and then going upwards doesn't really help. So we'll see if this will help or not. Russians still haven't advanced to Soledar from the north. When Russians reach Soledar from the north, that's when the position in Soledar will start becoming kind of bad at that moment. Right now, Soledar and Bakhmutsky are holding. And basically, once Soledar, Bakhmutsky falls, and then basically what Ukrainians would need to defend is Krasna Hora, this smaller circle, to then maybe defend against this road being cut. If Russians succeed with that and that, only then we can say that Bakhmut is probably should be abandoned. Otherwise, it's pretty much shelling. There we go. Map update. Easy. As I say, most of the things are happening in the gray zones. Not that much is going on the strategic level that is changing, that it can actually influence this war, except for maybe Kreminna. Like the fall of Kreminna would be that would be important. That would be pretty nice, because that would open like a hole that breaks down the Russian defensive positions in the area, which is really, really good. You can call me Taz. Okay, Taz. Thank you so much, because I was too focused on your the first part of the nickname. Tom Wright, let's not forget that Russia focusing on Bakhmut means that they are defending places like Kreminna, Svatove, Melitopol. Well, I mean, they have forces to defend, right? But the forces that Russia is having to defend, the reinforcements, is the same forces that they want to use in their offensive during the spring. So the more forces they expend into defense now, that means that the probability of any kind of offense during the spring is just being negated. And then Ukraine just completely dominates and goes into spring, any kind of spring offensives, whatnot, with the full initiative, and Russians are just still running low on manpower, especially trained manpower. Russia created a hatred among Ukrainian people that will last for generations. Yes, Christian, I agree on Putin. My point is just the Security Council was to avoid nuclear wars. It was became corrupt in itself. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Does is there any info about how much army is left in Kaliningrad? I wasn't looking into it, and I mean it's not really part of conflict. So, but I know that they've been scrubbing out police stations for troops when they were mobilizing. So I don't know. How will most locals receive Ukrainian armed forces in the east once they push through? Does it matter? Would a change at United Nations that if you're an aggressor, you can't vote work? Eh, it's like a lot of ifs, right, Lorna? It's a lot of ifs. Like big example, like the if Russia is stating that the war started because Ukrainians assaulted them on the control point and they just happen to have all these hundred thousands of troops, who is the aggressor? Russia says that they're not. How do you accept who is aggressor? Do you then do first a vote of who is the aggressor? It's like as shaky as it sounds. That's what I'm saying. It's BS. Transnistria has a giant arms storage facility. However, it's very dangerous because the arms of the decaying. Think bigger than the Lebanon explosion. Yeah. The Transnistrian ammo dump is just a few miles from Ukrainian territory. Ukraine could destroy it in a blink of an eye with RT or seize it within an hour. Yeah. I mean, Ukraine would have dealt with Transnistria like long time ago. It's just only because Moldova, it's considered part of the territory of Moldova. So until Moldova says that we want to get rid of Transnistria, can Ukraine help us? Only then Ukraine will intervene. I love Ben Hodges. He predicted Crimea coming home in August. He's been disappointed with Biden's refusal to provide ATACMS. Yes, exactly my point. Glad I got a laugh of you with your Medvedev letter. After all, Poland is invading Ukraine. After all, Poland is invading Ukraine. UK joins the EU. Yeah. Wagner Group had 40,000 men. That number must be so low. So Wagner composition, the core of Wagner, their useful troops, the actual specialists, is about 10K. And they have about 40,000 K. 40K is the all the either mobilized volunteer or prisoners. So the core, the actual battle capable troops in Wagner are about 10,000. It's pretty big still, don't get me wrong. Putler doing a great job of demilitarizing the Russian Federation. That is very true. And triggering a demographic time bomb. Yep. Zelensky the Great. Sorry that I phrased it wrongly, but are you an atheist? Glory to Ukraine. Yes, I don't believe in God. Maybe you have already, but I don't force it to anyone. Like, if you believe, good on you. Maybe you have already answered this question, but what are your thoughts on the Serbia-Kosovo situation? I already said about Serbia-Kosovo. Serbia is very close to, like in a statement, fuck around and find out. Serbia is very close to find out part. They're gonna find out that if a country is protected by NATO, it's not very good for them. But yeah, we're over 1,000 views, guys. Sorry, I called you last time. I called the total number of views. So it's people that came and went. So we can say that we're fine. Do you think Lukashenko is dodging Putin's orders? Yes. To keep Belarus out of war? Yes. Or based on how people in Belarus would react if Putin not giving instructions to attack? I mean, I'm pretty sure Putin gave instructions to attack a long time ago. Just Lukashenko is a lot better politician than Putin is. What do you think you have? What do you have to say that Russia is grinding down good Ukrainian troops at the cost of clearing out prisons, trading cannon fodder for trained troops? Um, I mean, it would be. I don't think it's smart. Like, think about it this way: Ukrainians are having a lot of casualties, but a lot of those casualties are wounded. And the problem would be if Ukraine would not be able to replenish those troops. And it can. And Ukrainians are replenishing these troops. So Ukraine is spending resources that they're having for defensive capabilities, yes, but they're not spending their offensive capabilities. And for defensive capabilities, I still believe that there is a lot of other troops that Ukraine can train to then be useful, especially because there is significant mobilization potential in Ukraine. So I don't think that this statement is true. Definitely some good troops are dying, some of the best people, but I don't think that it is as targeted, and I don't think that it's like only spending like good Ukrainian troops. Let's put it this way. Like, it's not to the extent that it's devastating for Ukraine. Like, they are not, like, it's a hard position. They have a lot of injuries, but it's not to the extent that it's completely devastating to Ukraine. Like, Ukraine is a big country. They have a million large force. And if the core of Ukrainian army is like 300,000, then they still have a lot of battle capable troops. Kellen Dunn, my fear is that U.S. Congress won't approve any more Ukraine aid after December 2023. Current package of 45 billion is only for 2023. I mean, why not? Republicans are for Ukraine, Democrats are for Ukraine. I don't know. I don't share your fears, Kellen Dunn. Maybe I'm too optimistic. Not happening. Yeah, that's what I've been talking about. US is seemingly terrified of the solution of Russian Federation. Oh my God, I'm reading so old questions. Yes. Russia can bomb a particular town for days. Why can't Ukraine locate where they're coming from? I just explained. Like, what? Ben Hodges got the timeline for Kherson right. He's the only analyst that has gotten everything right in the moment. Ben Hodges, in all of his predictions, got everything right. Everything, like from A to Z. The only thing that he said, like, Ukraine can free up territories given they're provided the resource. And we see that the only thing that is not happening is that US and the allies are not providing the two big last resource, long-range artillery and tanks. And sufficient numbers of everything. Oh, let's see. Get yourself a beer, mate. I'll join you as soon as you can. Thanks, Mark Raven. Thanks for 50 pounds. You're surprising me by catching up to the question that I think you already missed. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Why hasn't Ukraine destroyed the Russian gas pipeline running through Ukraine? As far as I know, wasn't there like, was the gas already closed, like at the start of the war? Like, so there is no gas running through Ukraine right now. I think like there is no gas running from Russia to Europe, period. Am I wrong? Am I mad here? Please fix me on this. You should have 1 million subscribers. I'm the odd one that's pro-Ukraine and pro-Serbia. Okay. So are you pro-genocide or against it? Are you at all worried that the Russians can suddenly launch a successful offensive? We've seen the Ukrainians do it with Kharkiv. Could Russians do the same? No. Ukraine matters. Raven 7. Ukraine making dinner watching this. Congrats on subs. Just to clarify, I'm not eating the kids' hamster. I hope you all saw this advertisements by the Russians that apparently Europeans are, well, Westerners in general, that's what they meant, are having it's so bad with no Russian gas that we are essentially completely freezing and like, yeah. Vitus Hoffman, saw your video on Scholz and our tanks. As a German, I want to tell you, we, the people in Germany, do not understand why Scholz is not sending Leopards 2 either. Even most of his government wants it. Vitus, yes, I have no quarrel with the people of Germany. I've always underscored that Germany has, and people of Germany have done so freaking much for Ukraine in this war, and it's unbelievable. So I don't agree with a lot of people saying that Germany is not doing everything. Like, Germany is doing a lot, and people in Germany is doing a lot. What I think is, I don't understand the feet dragging here. So that's pretty much was the argument. So no, I'm not saying that Germany is not doing enough. Grad range is 40 kilometers. They don't even spend much time aiming when they shell civilians. Less time on target means they just hit, like, yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, like, Derek is right over here. So, like, how do you target if they're like just general direction of a town and they just fire their missiles from 40 kilometers and that's it, and they scatter? Ton Ottenson, and guys, if there was some questions before, I cannot go back anymore because I'm too slow. So, like, the chat already cut itself. Georgie is one of the best channels, very honest and straightforward. That's why we love you and donate our money to you. Thank you so much. And actually, let's talk money. Like, let's talk money, because this was a little bit on my mind. I don't know even if I should be talking about this or someone. But first, let me answer this by White Lightning. White Lightning, is Ukraine offering refuge to Russian men who fear being drafted? Yes. Is it confirmed that Wagner is now recruiting female prisoners? I think they're putting advertisements on it, so might as well, yes. That's a new low if true. Yes, I'm pretty sure they are very worried how low they fall. So the money. So for some reason, YouTube is cutting off my ad revenue. I don't know what to do with this. So my latest videos, like, you know, they've gotten hundreds, thousands of views and whatnot. And you tell me if you see advertisements on my videos. Like, I just want to hear. But for example, videos like that got like, look at the video that got like, you know, around 120,000 views. It was like 18 days ago. I forgot the name of it. But from that video, I got an ad revenue $6. Like 120,000 views, and I got $6 in ad revenue. The YouTube support is not helpful, and they don't help. So if you know someone who to reach out, I don't know, write me a mail, whatnot, because I honestly am out of options, because YouTube supports, well, it seems like you're doing as intended. So after 120,000 views, and if you tell me if you've seen advertisements or not, it's generating $6. So the only kind of profits that are getting is Patreon subscribers, is memberships of YouTube, and so on. So I'm not sure it's because I'm covering Ukraine or not, or whatnot, but this started happening from November, and basically that only means one thing. Now, importantly, I am not dependent on the revenue from YouTube. Like, most of the things from YouTube, like, it was just to sustain the channel, to pay for, you know, video, for editing software and lights and buying, like, you know, stuff like that. It wasn't really a problem or whatnot. But I am not dependent. So this channel will continue in whatever case. It's until the end of the war. But this is the BS that I was always afraid of when I was thinking about, should I ever start YouTube or not? And I don't know what to do about it. I don't know where to reach out. Like, YouTube is notorious for not helping out smaller channels. So until you have like a million large audience, you don't have really any kind of voice. So that's the problem that I'm experiencing. So my revenue starting November for the channel, so essentially donations to Ukrainian army, have fallen off the cliff. Like, I'm literally getting like the whole month of November. In ad revenue, I think it was like 30 or 40 bucks. That's like nothing. So just wanted you to know, be aware that this is happening with the channels. So all of the arguments about war profiteering on my side are, well, firstly, that's not the point of this channel. But secondly, I don't know what's happening with YouTube, and I don't know what to do, where to turn. So suggest me if you have a solution, or if you saw people struggling with this somewhere else. Anyway, this was not to complain. This was not to ask for money. I'm doing fine. Don't worry about it. I think I'm just going to do more donation streams or something. So we donate to Ukraine a little bit more. And I kind of go around this whole no ad money situation. All right, let's get back to questions. Just so I'm honest with you guys. Yes, Derek, I think spaces and nicknames do matter. Okay, it's something else. Um, can you answer super chats? Yeah, I'm trying to answer super chats. Which one did I miss? Did I miss any super chats? I talked to White Lightning. I talked with Vitus. When can we have a beer on the Crimean beach? Sorry, it's like I'm only now I scroll to this comment. I'm so far up. Can we have a beer on Crimean beach next year? Maybe year after, probably. Then there is Bogdan. There are civilian owners of F-16. Why is the Pentagon reluctant to supply them to Ukraine? There were even donors, Taiwan, others. I mean, yeah, the same problem with the ATACMS or the tanks. Like, it's the stupid argument. It will break up NATO. Probably Mr. Scholz and Macron basically put a taboo on supplying these kind of armaments. Douglas Newman, Jake is politically biased. I don't like political bias. Ukraine Matter doesn't talk like a political bias. I like that. I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, like, I have my stances. I just like good policies. I don't give a shit if they're from Democrats or Republicans if we're talking American politics. It's like, if Democrats are doing dumb shit, then I'm gonna call them out for it. The same for Republicans, obviously. MI, do you think Russia has surveillance from space? Yeah, like the problem of Russia is not that they don't have surveillance. The problem of Russia is it's old, it's bad quality, and it's mostly static pictures. It's not a live feed or anything like this. Ozzy Buga, on a cost-benefit basis, what airplanes add for Ukraine that drones, missiles, and RT can't? Essentially, if planes are supplied to Ukraine, Ukraine can establish, especially Western-style planes. So the problem of Ukrainian planes, they cannot use Western-style munitions. The Western-style munitions, and like, when planes are in the game for Ukraine, Ukraine can start fighting like NATO. So it can use a lot of doctrines of NATO. For example, HIMARS. Like, HIMARS is not as prominent in the Western armies for one specific thing, because the job that HIMARS are doing is usually executed by plane crews in the Western spheres. HIMARS is a supplementary tool. The fact that Ukraine is using like HIMARS for a targeted strike abilities is usually a job for planes. So, but planes are able to carry bigger load, missiles, and they're able to carry and shoot missiles from further away. So it's a long range, both anti-air and anti-ground capabilities that Ukraine would get. It would be a force multiplier and force negator on the Russian side. So essentially, Ukraine would be able to dominate the skies, and that would allow Ukraine, for example, to use Bayraktar drones, would be able to strike strategic targets, then therefore complicating logistics, and so on and so on. And obviously, Russia preventing Russian use of air power. Would Ukraine attack on Mariupol, Berdyansk, or Melitopol achieve the same thing? Yes. Attack on Mariupol, Berdyansk, yes, would be exactly the same thing. West still has a long way to go. They have been using only 2% of economy on defense. Ukraine needs artillery. That's will decide, in my opinion. Yes, but again, like, the job of artillery in the Western powers is secondary. That's why they didn't have so much artillery to find a full-blown artillery warfare. Where's the next big goodwill gesture will be? I think around Melitopol South. Maxim Mustang, what do you believe are the chances that Ukraine will be pressured not to take back Crimea? Zero. Do you think Severodonetsk is important to take, or is it just as bad of an idea as Bakhmut for Russia? So, do you think if taking Severodonetsk is a good idea? Um, I mean, Severodonetsk, Lysychansk is important because they allow essentially a siege, like they're basically the control point around the north in Luhansk. If they're taking, then Bakhmut is not. But I do not believe that Ukraine will use the same kind of tactics Russia is using to take those cities. Because Russian tactics are shit because their army is shit and its command is shit and they don't know how to find wars. They just have a lot of men with guns. It's a orc horde more so than the any kind of structured army that is capable of executing complex operations. The Russian dude also has lost revenue as well. Would wonder what this is about. Interesting. Maybe I should talk with him. Do you think Russia has got surveillance from space over the battlefield? Yeah, I answered that already. Happening to several other YouTubers as well, Georgie. Okay, interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, interesting. Thanks for bringing it up. Please reconsider your views on Maxim Katz. The guy wants Crimea returned to Ukraine, wants Donbass returned, and repartisans to Ukraine. The dude is our ally. I never said he wasn't a Ukrainian ally. That's not my position, the Pal. That's not my position. Like, and I know that you really want to change my mind on Maxim Katz. Maxim Katz is a democratic supporter. He is overall, I would say, a net benefit for Ukraine because I think his messaging has been very clear on this war. What I do disagree on Maxim Katz on is the fact that he is also a proponent of the Russian world. The idea that Ukraine and Russia should still be essentially a unified and close nations where they would be still dominated by the Russian culture and people so Russia should still be have the role of a bigger brother, like the bigger country in these negotiations. I disagree with this. I think Russia in its history has done a lot of awful things and they need to reflect on it. And Russian Empire should exist no longer. That is my personal belief and will it happen? And that's completely different questions. I value Maxim Katz as a proponent of democracy. I completely disagree with him on many things. In this particular war, I think that he is doing an okay job as an informant. However, I still will critique him for being inactive in the political sense if he wants to be a Russian politician. I think he's a good YouTube personality. I don't think he's a good politician. I think other channels are having the same problems. The Russia Canadian dude has the most of his ad revenue cut and doesn't know why. Yeah, wow. See, you got your ears lowered. Looks nice. Haircut, American sayings. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. I just like, I mean, like, I cut hair sometimes. I don't really like. After I got married, I really stopped caring about how I look. Probably I should, but to be honest, I live in Denmark and like there's a lot more like freedom on how you look. Like there isn't a lot of social pressure, like for example in Latvia, where like, oh my God, you look shit. Why would you ever go out in public? Why would you wear a suit if you're trying to address Congress? Start a Patreon. I already have a Patreon, by the way. You can subscribe to Patreon. I don't know what to do. Okay, Patreon, guys. Okay, I'm struggling with Patreon. I need to be honest with you. I'm really struggling. So in my perception, like I want to give everything to everyone because I'm not doing it for money, right? It doesn't matter like if you give me money or not. like I love you anyway. Like I love my community. I love every single one of you. And I've been in my life in situations where I just didn't have the money. So for me, a person that does give me money is not significantly more valuable than a person that doesn't give me money. So I like Patreon, but like doing anything exclusive on Patreon is making me cringe. I gotta be honest, because like if I'm gonna be doing something in Patreon, why cannot I be doing it for all of the people? Like if I'm gonna be doing stream, why should it be just a stream for the Patreon members? Like if I'm gonna be answering some questions on stream, why should it be only Patreon members? Maybe there are like good people that are watching me that just don't have the money to pay, you know? And that's why like I'm really struggling on how to like, essentially get Patreon monetized, because I'm probably dumb like that, because I really value every single viewer and subscriber of this channel, like no matter what. And I really appreciate the fact that like I'm able to get the money and support Ukraine and so on. I would like to get support for what I'm doing on the main channel, and not for the extra exclusives that are just fancy things on Patreon. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just dumb. Convince me otherwise. Like I just think that all of you matter. And before it was true because I had the ad revenue, like so, like most of the revenue was from the advertisements. So yeah. So now I don't know, but we'll see. Anyway, like I'm not doing this for money. First and foremost, my point is to inform you guys about what's happening in Ukraine, keep the attention on Ukraine, and if I'm able to earn anything from this channel, I'm going to be very happy to donate to Ukrainian military. That is the point. YouTuber Sukhomos expressed the, oh my god, oh no. Russia depends on Zerg taxes. In a game, this is fine. In reality, the loss of human assets will speed up their decline. Oh yeah, I mean, like they're losing not just human, but they're losing equipment. A lot of equipment, a lot of really good equipment. Gotta go study. Jorge, good luck with studying, or Jorge, or Jorge. I don't know how to pronounce it. Like there are so many different types of pronunciations. But good luck with your studies. I still remember very fondly the times when I studied. Hey, Max Carpentry Love Dogs, hello. YouTubers economists expressed the same issue, but YouTube was flagging them unplausible. Are you not alone, my friend? I mean, I don't have any tags. That's the problem. Like none of my videos are like, I know that there's tags are when they are essentially like if I'm showing some videos, but I'm not showing any videos. I'm just talking on camera, and I don't have any notifications. All my videos are green, and I don't have any logos or notifications to that. I don't know. Whatever. I missed BC Super Chat. BC Super Chat. Okay. Let's see. Can I see Super Chat? BC, can you just write me your question again if I missed it? I'm very, very sorry. Not my points. I'll try to read. Alice, thank you so much for Czech Corona 500. I really appreciate it. Little Dickens too. Thank you so much, and I will do a better job at reading super chats. I will promise I will get a little bit better. So BC, just please write me again. I'm very sorry for missing stuff. Not on purpose. Wasn't my yeah. Yeah, Sukhomimos. Oh my God, like Sukhomimos content is really good. Like that's so bad that his content is getting flagged. Some Russian felt poor our windows. WhatsApp, YouTube opinions, abort Prigozhin and Kadyrov. Are they successor of Putin? Will they fall off a window? Okay, I need to reread this. Some Russians felt out of windows. Yes. WhatsApp, YouTube opinion about Prigozhin and Kadyrov. my opinion about Prigozhin and Kadyrov. Are they successor of Putin or will they follow a window? They definitely won't follow the window. They are the pillars with Putin's regime is based on. Get on Patreon, charge, and still alive to continue your work. This war was everything, should not be too idealistic. 15% practical, please. Get on Patreon, charge, and still alive to continue your work. This war and everything should show you not to be too idealistic. 15% practical, please. Okay, practical. We'll try to be practical. 15% practical, sure. Would Ukraine be Russian by now under Poroshenko? What influence does Zelensky have pressing NATO to help with his good showmanship? Would Ukraine be Russian under Poroshenko? Maybe. Maybe. I think the Zelensky persona is definitely was right place at the right time. So the things might have been a lot worse if there would be some other guy. But we don't know. What influence does Zelensky have pressuring NATO to help with his good showmanship? I mean, he's trying to appeal to some kind of consciousness. He's trying to get these last people on board, to convince both Republicans and Democrats that everything is fine. But we'll see if he succeeds or not. Leopard tanks in Ukraine, if they will appear, then Zelensky has succeeded. If not, well, then we're in the same position. Do you think Ukraine will liberate Crimea? Yes. Ukraine will liberate all of the territory of Ukraine, guys. It's only the question of time. It's not a question of if. Okay, Peter Altmans. Some Russians... Okay, I already read this one. Okay. Yeah, but I'm not getting demonetized. It's just my ad revenue is super freaking low. Like, on a video with 100,000 views, I'm getting like, $5 of ad revenue. It's like there was no ads or no one is watching my ads. But I think it's like, even if they're airing, they're still showing it. Your thoughts on Italy's new prime minister? Well, I mean, she's not that new anymore. Meloni, so far she pleasantly surprised me. Yes, and she is definitely continuing her support to Ukraine. So good on her. Good on her. Her statements were also very much in order. I think she is a good part. Again, some people think like if you elect right winger, it's right away bad. I don't think so. I think both right wing and left wing politics have the right to exist. What I think they should strive for is for good policies. So if there is good reasons for right wing policies, sure, why not? Right? If there is a bad ideas, like because sometimes left wingers, they try to idealize to say like, oh, because we're left wingers, we're like, oh, we're promoting people's politics, and then they propose something fucking dumb, like cutting or putting 70% tax on all of the profits and all of the companies. Well, sorry, but that is really fucking dumb, because that kills entrepreneurship. Do you think such agreement is reasonable for Ukraine? Luhansk and Donetsk gain federative status and stay in Ukraine. Crimea stays in Ukraine but rent to Russia for 50 years, like status of Hong Kong. No. Completely gone. We need to understand, when you're proposing something like this, you are saying that, when you're saying, oh, if there is an agreement between Russia and Russia wins something out of this war, what you're saying is that it is okay to go into the other country, kill, rape, torture, shoot people in the hand, and then come out with some benefits from it. There is after Bucha, there is nothing. And from there, the war crimes just escalated. And I know that there has been so many war crimes that we are completely desensitized. Desensitized? So we don't really look at them at all. But you need to understand that is not the same for Ukraine. For Ukraine, every single family now and every single person in Ukraine knows someone that suffered from this war personally. It's a personal issue for every single Ukrainian. So when you're saying is like Ukraine should go negotiate with Russia, you're saying that, hey, why don't you forget that like your friend or a child of your friend has been raped, tortured, and killed or hit by missile by a kindergarten, and your own kid had to suffer all these days after shelling from the missiles by spending in a basement. Forget all that and let Russia have something instead. Does this not sound nice? You, by promoting any kind of negotiations with Russia and trying to appease Russia in any way, you are opening a Pandora's box of a whole another level. You are essentially trading with the lives and morality of humanity by proposing that. You are putting a position saying it is fine. I find it okay for someone to enforce their will on others if they're strong enough, if they're big enough, if they're threatening enough. Ukraine and Ukrainian people have already made their choice. They say no. No negotiations, no concessions. The only discussion that Russia should have with Ukraine is how much they will be paying in retributions and how will they pay to repay the suffering of all those families, and how will they give out will they prosecute the war criminals themselves, or will they give the war criminals for Ukraine or the international court to prosecute? That is the negotiations that should be having. All of the before is not negotiations. If Russia comes out with any kind of benefit of what it did not have before, that means that lost. Everyone in the world lost, and everyone in Ukraine lost. And not a single person and not another politician in Ukraine will go for it. Because if a politician even tries to propose it to someone, it's going to be his last day on the job. For the ads, I'm blocking. You're not blocking anything, my friend. Russia is completely useless to the world, provides zero benefit. Okay, so JC the Music Man, I actually want to expand on this, that Russia is completely. So all of the people says like, hey, don't cancel Russian culture. I have a thought process. When was the last great Russian culture person born? When was the last the great thing that came out of Russia? Why are we looking at a country and trying to find what was good about it? You know, it's sometimes it's funny that if a country is just so shit that they produce one good thing in like a decade, it suddenly is like, wow, but this was so good. You know, it's like, it's because in comparison to everything else, it's just so standing out. It's a great Russian poet because the majority of Russian poets were propagandists that were demanding the genocide of their neighbors. And then we say, oh, but there's this one guy that didn't. And it doesn't even stand a chance when you look at the other great poets and like great artists from the countries that Russia was subjugating. And now that we have the modern Russia that is not producing a lot of great culture. Their culture in the last 30 years was what? Corruption, support of the far right or far left extremist powers inside of our democracies, destabilization, political murder, like execution of citizens of other countries on their soil. What is it that Russia has brought to the table exactly? Why is the current Russia culture valuable in our perspective? And in that perspective, why it should be treated as more valuable than our European culture or American, like the Western culture? Why should we treat the benefits of the country and the culture of the country that is actively working to sabotage the way that we're living, to sabotage our world and our worldview, and destroy our culture or the culture of the smaller countries that we are having as a part of our heritage. Why are we looking so much into this shit and God-forgotten land to find anything good in there and say, well, just look how good this was? So my point is that a lot of the things that were created from Russia are being brought upon because there is not that much competition in Russia for those. And secondly, they were brought up because they became popular, and a lot of really great and amazing cultural authors that, for example, are just not known. If you look in almost every single European country, that like smaller one, let's take like, Slovenia or Bosnia-Herzegovina or any other place like, Slovakia, Czechia, there are great authors with great people with great culture that are making great efforts. But we're not saying, hey, Russia, you shouldn't try to mess and destroy these countries and their country cultures by supporting some fringe nationalistic powers that would lead them to essentially take dominance. So I'm sorry, but I don't have any good sentiment against for supporting and not denying Russian culture. Until Russia stops being this godforsaken hole in the ground that is trying to destroy civilization and civilized society that we've built here over the bloods of our ancestors, I don't have any shits given for whatever Russia is producing or produced over the years. All right, that was a rant. Slava Ukraine from Copenhagen. Absolutely, my man. Absolutely. All right. What does this mean? Russian Foreign Ministry Sergei Lavrov stated that Kremlin will continue to pursue a military solution to the war until the Ukrainian government capitulates. I mean, Lavrov is just spouting nonsense, so... Scroll up, BC wrote his question, you missed it before. Okay. Okay, there we go. BC, your thoughts are final Ukrainian territorial borders at the end of the war? Yes. Thankfully, I answered your question just now. Is it for the educational purpose? We learn so much. I mean, like, I'm not an educational channel. I'm a guy on YouTube. Like, you should not treat me as an educational channel. I'm literally a person on YouTube just speaking his mind. Like, if you learn from this, great, but like, I'm not an educational channel. You are far from dumb. I agree. GC the music. I agree with your sentiment. If you ask to send support, they want to keep sending upfront helps. Yes, yes, yes. Good. Thank you so much. Okay. You did promise to look at the live chat more. BC's question is still unanswered. I just answered the question of BC. I'm looking at my chat. Yeah. BC's question was about your thoughts about... Yeah, okay, I already answered that. Totally agree with you about Russia. Okay. I love your rants about Russia, Georgie. Thank you. Almost every aspect. Yes. By the way, like, have you tried looking into how much shit Russia has stolen from other cultures? Holy shit, guys. Like, I know that like a lot of these videos are coming up just now to kind of piss on Russians and Russian culture, but like because they put themselves with this war, Russia and Putin and whatever, they put themselves under the spotlight. They put themselves so they get examined. Like, are they good, bad, or not? So, and like, it wasn't like no one was asking Putin to, hey, by the way, could you please start a war and start weaponizing culture and Russian nationality, just so we start looking at with like a with actual microscope and spotlight and find out how full of shit you really are. Like, say thanks to Mr. Putin for this. Yeah. Like, okay, Hellfire. Okay, I know that like I say a lot that Russia is shithole, and people say is like, oh, you just hate Russians, you're like Russophobe. Well, try acting so I want. Become fucking civilized. Like my desire, and I think desire of pretty much everyone in Europe and Ukrainians probably the first, is they want to have Russia as a fucking normal, predictable neighbor that people can work with and live with and have friendly, normal relationship with. Like be a normal country. And then like it would be nice to be promoting your culture because hey, you're a good guy. It's nice, right? But if you're just acting like an asshole, walking around everyone's past, disregarding everyone's identity and history, I mean, historical identity, and saying you're not a country because X, well, sorry, it's like, why should we even respect you? Like, I was like, oh, but like you're putting all of the Russians in the same category. But there is a lot of support for it in Russia. And the same with like with Maxim Katz. Like he is also saying is like, oh, fuck the Western countries for trying to deny Russian heritage. Well, start acting like normal country, and then we want. All right, that was a rant. That was a rant. Um, Phil Lee, remember Ian Fleming was involved in developing Operation Mincemeat. Write some imagination, and it worked. Yeah, I love your Eastern European use of profanity. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not using profanity for profanity's sake. Actually, it's not Eastern European. I became more like profanate in Denmark. Like, because in Denmark there is such a lax attitude to everything. Like, people just like, yeah, sure, whatever. It's like fuck all. Who gives a shit? It's literally just a matter of speech. Like, because in Denmark English is not really considered as like a main language. So there's a lot of freer attitude to a lot of the things. And a lot of times there is a twisted perspective on the language because a lot of it came from like, music, shows, TV, whatever, whatnot. And a lot of those like they try to be edgy in US, and therefore it's often is the perception that this is how people in English speaking countries are actually talking, which is completely not true. But for example, it would be completely normal at my job, for example, like for well, I'm not going to specify any names, this is not to my direct manager, but in general, in Denmark, it would be completely normal to see like some kind of meeting, like where a CEO of a company comes out and say like, well, this year was a freaking shit show, right? We are so deep in shit that we are cannot even imagine. Like, so we need to get our fucking shit together, and that would be normal in Denmark. Like, because no one really pays that much attention to it. So I'm sorry if this offends anyone. I know there are people that are being offended, but this is just like, I don't follow it that much. It's just kind of became part of the things. Maybe this is something I should be working on. Like, I don't do it to sound profane, like for the sake of it. It's not my point. It's just I didn't realize it before. Again, I wasn't a public person half a year ago. Hi, did you notice that Kazakhstan sends a bunch of big generators to help Ukrainian hospitals? That's awesome. I mean, Kazakhstan has aligned itself with China. Kazakhstan said that they're going out of the Russian sphere of influence and they are coming into the essentially Kazakh Chinese relationship more closely. So Kazakhstan really understood where this war is going, and I think a lot of people already understood. So it's actually no surprise to me at all. Don't forget the influence of sailors who only swear less than dockers. That is true. That's true. So I'm very sorry if this is offending anyone. Like I'm not swearing on purpose. I promise. Nicholas, thanks so much for $9. David, why is Russia so phobic? Ukraine phobic. Russia, like, I think, well, firstly, for these kind of questions, I recommend you going to Vlad Vexler's channel. Like, people that watch me, they know, like, I disagree with Vexler on his statements a lot, but I think his positions are very, very sound. And especially because he's an academic, he knows a lot more than I do. Like, I am just a guy on YouTube that has my own opinions. There might be wrong. It's fine. It's democracy. That's the whole point of democracy, for us to have our own opinions and then agree or disagree with some of them. That's normal. That's the whole point, right? Right now, why I'm such a strong stance in Ukraine is because this is a fight for our democracy. It's a fight for me to have my strong and wrong opinions, so I'm able to be wrong and not prosecuted by anyone because of it. That's the democratic fight. But Vlad Vexler has a very good understanding of the Russian mentalities and how Russians are thinking. That's why you should watch his channel and subscribe to his channel, because he's really good at it. And he understands Russian mindset a lot better than I do, because I more understand, how Russian socium is working, like how Russians would react and so on, because I've seen how Russian society operates and so on. But understanding what's happening inside of hands, like why Russians are acting, that's a whole different idea. So answering why is Russia so Ukrainophobic, I'm not sure I can. Like, I can explain to you that, like, Russia will act Ukrainophobic in a certain situations. Georgie, you need a mod. I'll help you out with this. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. There you go. Ellie for moderator. Yes. Yeah, you should watch Vlad Vexler's channel for understanding how psychology works. You do not swear a lot. I'm from UK. Hey, liberation. Thanks so much. Carla, thanks so much for $20. Gino Fu, get support, be practical, have to have rebuild Ukraine. You can always give the money to Ukraine. Yeah. I mean, fair enough. I mean, I am giving money. Like, this channel, again, I don't call it non-profit, because that's, it's a lot of like internal mental things that people start thinking that there's like some legal status and so on. This is still a technically for-profit channel. But I am just happily donating to Ukrainian army, because I'm able to, help people in Ukraine. It's like the more money the military will get in Ukraine, the faster this war will end. Perfect. You are correct, JC the Music Man. Words are for communication, and some words work well because they have emphasis on emotion. I am emotional. I am. That's very true. I mean, like, you see me ranting. Like, I mean, people can take apart my rants. Like, I've been wrong on some assets. I will be wrong on some other things. That's why I don't want to focus too much, for example, on sources of information, because I'm not an information channel. I'm like, this is my opinion blogging channel. The fact that, like, when I'm covering the war, I try to stick with the facts, and I verify the facts, and I check for the facts. That is still going on through my bias, through my opinion, and so on. But still, I want the information that I tell and present to be as accurate as possible. But I'm not like a military analyst. I'm not responsible to anyone. The only people that I'm responsible is to myself and you, my friends and audience. So, but I will, how do you say, I will not be stating that, like, in a court of law, I would be saying is like, can you completely prove how this statement came true? It's like, no. Firstly, it's war. There's a lot of fog of war anyway, so anyone can be wrong at any time. So many analysts have been proven wrong during this conflict. So it's like pretty much all of the analysts have been wrong one way or another. So it's only a matter of what you're doing. And besides, a lot of what I'm saying, I also veto with a lot of analysts. I actually add very little on my own thoughts. And most of my own thoughts, I especially, that's why I divide, for example, in the videos, the second part of the video is very often is mostly me talking as a blog, a vlog. So that's why. Darren Young, what do you think if United States sends M60A3 to Ukraine? Okay, I need to find out what M60A3 is. I would think that it is some kind of tank. Yes, it's a tank. I think I've heard someone talking that they're using some kind of different ammunition. So US doesn't have stockpiles of this ammunition. Or was it the spare parts? So there was some kind of issue with those tanks that they couldn't be sent. So there was some problems. There are, however, like older howitzers that are still using 155 ammunition. I think it was like M106, I believe. Let me see. M106? No. Yeah, I cannot remember. No, M106 is a self-propelled gun. I cannot remember. So there was like some older 155 millimeters that was before the M777s, and those could be sent. And I'm not completely sure why they aren't sent. So because Ukraine just needs more ammunition. I think it's mostly because US is trying to balance out the usage of ammunition. So they have the ability to sustain the flow of shells for these weapons. Tosun Abbey, do you think Turkey can fill the vacuum if Russia vacuum the Russia's loss of influence in the Stan republics going to create since they're all Turkic origin? Yes, I mean that's the whole spiel of Erdogan. Like Erdogan from the get-go was essentially positioned himself as essentially the Sultan of Turkic and this Arabic region. The problem of Erdogan is he decided to meddle in economics and he fucked up. He fucked up really bad. Like he really should not have tried doing this smooth brain dictator economics, because that is like one thing that Putin's regime did really well, is like you do the politics the way you work, but you leave economics and especially central bank and economic system independent on whatever you do. Like economics do economy, and like you just like do the politics, whatever, repress anyone, and it worked great. Like Russian system was working great. Like the only thing that that system is not very good at is going into full-scale wars and then trying to change and then finding out that everything is corrupt, because that's really bad. But otherwise, the Putin system was remarkably stable, remarkably stable. So Erdogan's effort to meddle into the economics of his own country is his own biggest problem. So while he really wants to have a lot of political influence, and he's actually projecting a lot of it, the problem he's having is that the Turkish economy is not able to sustain it fully. So they don't have the dominance in the economic sphere to be, for example, challenging China's influence around these areas. But he would want it, yeah. Little Dickens too. There are problems between the Orc army and Belarusian army due to the Orcs' ethnic superiority complex that has been reported several places in the past week. Yeah, I mean, yes. Like the Russians, they are thinking themselves superior than the Ukrainians and so on. That's why, for example, they don't feel that they are, for example, invading some other country in Ukraine. Like Vlad has talked about this, that they don't even perceive Ukraine as a separate territory, right? So when they say there's fighting in Ukraine, it's often is reported as it's like fighting not in some other country that Russia has invaded, but it's like in their own backyard, essentially. Yeah, if you want to ask, always put the at Ukraine matters, because otherwise I'm just skipping. I'm just assuming that you're talking to each other, guys. It's 1,000 people in the chat. I love you all, but it's becoming very tough for me to read. But I'm doing my best. You know, I'm doing my best. I'm trying. Is it true that there is an issue with the parts to repair captured vehicles? On the field, yes. The problem with a lot of Western style equipment is that it was not made for this war, for this kind of war. So, for example, the super amazing power Panzerhaubitze 2000 has turned out that if they are under constant use, like the constant fire, if they're being firing like so much, that they are completely breaking apart. Like everything needs to be changed and oiled and maintained all the time, which is completely impossible in the field conditions. For example, you can Google like Germany, for example, is not dropping their Marder APCs or IFVs, sorry, infantry fighting vehicles, because the newer Panthers. So they decided after looking in the war in Ukraine, they made like a test of their infantry fighting vehicles with extra prolonged effort, and I think they had like some like 18 APCs Panthers these in the exercise, and all 18, because of the higher pressure that they put, like comparing to the war in Ukraine, all of them failed. So which essentially puts the question as like, does it mean that every APC is just incapable to sustain long-term battle conditions? And Germany essentially put a big question mark on a lot of their military assets, if they're even battle capable or like war capable at all. Like, because one thing is being shown on the exercises and the testing fields, but completely other thing when you have a full-scale war that goes on for years. The old BBC radio show Just a Minute requires contestants to speak for 1 minute on a given subject without hesitation, deviation, or repetition. Any docker would win on swearing yes. Oh, that's pretty good. Gregor Kranch, do you face a lot of Russia supporters near you? No, I live on Denmark, so not really. In Slovenia, we have a lot of them, probably because huge influence from Serbs. Yeah, I mean, like, I think in Denmark there's like roughly 30% of people probably that support Russia. And I believe like that's roughly about my estimates of Europe, that there is about 30% of people in Europe maybe fluctuating. And 30% is quite a lot. It's like every fourth, every third, every fourth person. Right. So that's quite a lot. Like when you think about how many people you're interacting with, especially if you're like in a job environment or a corporate environment. So that's fair, and I don't know what to do about it, right? You know, it's hard to talk about it. But then again, when you look at it, it's like, remember the vaccination part, you know, and how people were denying that part, that vaccines are there to kill us and they're not actually stopping everything, and that it's all about, you know, just to let it go and we can all survive this and so on. And then we started vaccinating, and then countries that got vaccinated are actually the ones that are performing quite well. So there are always the fringes, but that's the part of democracy. That's the part of agreement. I think our biggest mistake with democracies is just being very irresponsible to our security. Think about it this way. So when we are allowing democracy, this free speech and so on, what we're essentially saying, we are okay to deviate from the main narrative. We accept that there are people that are having different opinion than us. That is an inherent security risk. That is a risk of when there's like people that saying that this country should not exist. We say, sure, okay, we allow you to talk about this. The problem is that sometimes these voices can become really, really loud. And in democracy, we have a proper democratic system that allows to change. If there's this voice becomes a majority, then there is a democratic system that allows the power for this to come to power. But at some point, there is a very dedicated minority that would start undermining the whole concept, irrespective of whether they are a majority or not. So they would start to work towards destruction of this of this particular country. So essentially, they're undermining the will of the majority. And in that moment is when we essentially start asking the question, should the democratic and tolerant societies tolerate intolerance? And my answer is very clear. I personally think no. So when there is this fringe group appearing, it needs to be dealt with absolute strictness, and they should be prosecuted and stopped at whatever cost. So the same way we don't look at the countries around us in our external politics. So when we say that, okay, we're gonna have interactions with some kind of like authoritarian regimes, we need to state that as a democracy, we should allow our internal, because once we allow people speak their mind, we also essentially open the gates for some kind of a enemy entity from outside to start influencing and supplying these fringe groups in democracies that can undermine it despite the will of the majority. They can start supplying them with resources that they would otherwise don't have. So they get money, they get power, can get weapons, they can get whatever they need from the powers outside. And if we as democracies do not invest in our own security, then we become vulnerable. That's why the more freedom we give ourselves internally, the more we need to invest in our defensive capabilities. So that's why, for example, a country like US can be so free in their like people, that they're okay, essentially people to even say and criticize the US. So they can be fringe groups that are walking around with guns. Why? Because we know that US is so militarized that it has so much defensive capabilities that whatever these fringe groups start, if they start acting up, there is enough resistance to hit it. And that also comes to the external. If there is some kind of external party that starts interfering in the country, then it's becomes like it's going to get crushed if there ever comes to any kind of action. If, however, we're looking at some of the European powers, we see a big problem in that. We still have quite free societies, maybe not to extent, like for example, in Europe, there is no freedom of speech. There is a freedom of expression, which is actually a different things when you look at it. So in Europe, some hate speech can actually be really prosecuted. The problem is it doesn't really apply to the political statements, right? So if you're a political group, a fringe political group that calls for destruction of a lot of countries, there is often not a system that would prosecute it until now. Now I think like a lot of the countries started looking at it. And because we also in Europe reaped a lot of peace benefits after the Second World War, we stopped investing into our own security. And essentially, we made ourselves vulnerable to outside influence because we didn't have sufficient military power. If the war would actually come to us, if Putin would say, okay, we're going to attack like the democracies like this, maybe not directly, but like a massive hybrid attack, like actually like like it was already happening. You saw with France, where far right parties almost won the elections, and it was a party that is significantly supplied by the Russian Federation. It has millions and millions and millions of resources, and they had basically made not an even playground on the French democracy. And in that sense, we didn't have enough strong power to protect ourselves from the outside influence. And that is, I think, where democracies should be very strong. So the freer we want democracy to be, the more we need to invest in our security. Wow, that was a rant. But I was thinking about this a lot. Poll shows 92% support for Ukraine and Denmark. Yes, Denmark and Nordics are and I actually have again a theory. Why is that? But I'm afraid I'm just going to be talking for way too much, and I'm not sure if you even find this interesting. All these kind of thinking, my thinking aloud parts. I hope you do, because that's just what I do. Kremlin has been feeding money into far right groups. Yes, exactly, exactly. Not just far right, like important. Not just far right, far left as well. Fringe groups, far fringe groups. For example, there is like a group that's called Die Linke in Germany. It's also been completely fed by the Russian government, but no one is talking it because everyone's just like far right, far right. No, no, it's far anything, far right, far left, anything that can destabilize the status quo is good for Russia. What about the counterintelligence services? Are they not supposed to protect against such an obvious and massive outside influence? The key, like in your, you pretty much answered your own question. That's a rhetorical question, but the key word is supposed to. Fritz, what would it mean if Russia starts seeing Ukraine supporters help us as participants of war? Well, Russia can do whatever fuck they want. Like they can see whatever, but like that doesn't change the war. It's like if they attack a NATO country, like because let's extend your thought to then what? Like if they start saying, well, now West is part of the war, and the West says, no, we're not. What does the Russia do? Do they then attack a NATO country? Well, because if they do, then I mean, then it's not going to be any more Russia. And Putin knows that. Like Putin is a coward. You are again thinking that there's like some kind of big political game and so on. Russia has lost all the political games. Like right now, Russia as a political entity exists only because people that matters in Europe, for example, like Scholz or Macron, they still try to give Russia some kind of leeway. They try to offer some kind of like a way out for Russia. Like Russia is dependent on us. Like it doesn't have its say anymore. Like because whatever say Russia had after Putin invaded Ukraine, one, and then all the atrocities and inhumane actions that Russia has been doing and is doing, Russia has lost the political agency. Travis Erickson, many misunderstand the goal of Russian propaganda, who they fund. It's about dividing us, getting us fighting us among ourselves. Yeah, I mean, yes, exactly. Like it's Russia doesn't give a shit. Russia doesn't have a political ideology. Russia is neither right, neither left. Russia is essentially just like it tries to destroy the West. That's like the Putin's ideology. Have you heard any updates on Ukraine developing its own long-range HIMARS or other long-range weapons? I mean, like, have you heard about the explosions in Engels? The problem is the quantity. Like, so data relay. So the problem is how much is developed, yes, but how much is also produced. The production capacity is what matters. Like why Ukraine is asking for long-range weapons right now, because they're available. They're being produced, they're available. They need them on scale. Like if Ukraine still develops something, it's gonna take a long time for them to develop. So they already have the developments of some stuff. Like the drone technology is out of control right now, development in Ukraine, but scaling it to a mass production will take time. Do you think Russia's economic collapse will stop them fighting war before the inevitable Ukrainian complete victory? Depending on what you put in this question, will the decrease in the standards of living force the Russian population to revolt? No, won't completely won't. Will the lack of payments stop Russian army of fighting? I don't think so, because like Russia is promising payments, but it doesn't pay. And if the people just die before they are even paid, who cares? So I think that the actual costs of the Russian economy collapsing will come in only when Russia will start running out of their reserves. And right now, the reserves are still there. So they're able to, like, because You need to understand what sanctions do. Like people say, like, oh, but like Russia will still be able to get the materials that are even prohibited by sanctions. Yes, but the point of sanctions, like, is that like it's understands that there will be some kind of gray schemes of to overcome that. What it does increase is the cost of produce. So, and while Russia can pay for this increased cost of produce, it can still fight, and it will be like Russian economy is not sustaining itself, but it still has a lot of war chest pillow. Only once the war chest runs out will the Russian economy will start like being hit strongly enough to be crippled, because the cost, like, because Russia will decrease the living standards for its population even more, and Russian population will eat it up. The only problem will start when Russia doesn't have a war chest to pay the close associates, to play off when essentially taking money from US will become more lucrative than from Putin. But there is still a way to go to that. Kellen Dunn, democracy is like a messy relationship. It's complicated, but it's far better than anything else. It needs to be protected. Yes. You missed Genofu's super. Sorry, yeah, it's because I was running. I was ranting. Oh my god. Can I see it back? No. Ah. I'm sorry for missing another one. I was just ranting way too much. Sorry, Genofu. I'll see if I can find it. Can I find it? I think super chats are recorded in the studio. Let me see. Yada yada. Supers. Was it here? Jenna Fu. Oh, I found the super chats. Yes, now I will not miss. Jenna Fu, get support, be practical. Well, no, I read this. What are you talking about, mister? I didn't miss it. I read this one. I read this Jenna Fu's. Like, don't tell me I missed it. I read it. Lying. Don't lie. Lying bad. Don't be like Putin. Tosun Abe, Ukraine will win as they keep destroying Russian military trucks with kamikaze drones. I mean, that's one way of putting it. I mean, like, Russia is definitely, like, at some point, Russia will not have enough equipment to sustain the battle. And that's pretty much how they will start collapsing. Do you find it concerning that the level of losses of Russian equipment are going down since autumn? Are they sacrificing manpower instead? But they have a lot of that. I mean, yeah, because they're preparing for the offensive, so that's why like they're doing a lot of more of a manpower attacks because they're holding on. But does it make me worry? No, not really. No, no, not really. Derek, Russia's coercive political. Oh, sorry. Free Europe. Russia is isolated in the West and G7, but not in the whole world. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But the majority of the world, at least, is not going to be supporting the Russian effort. And the costs of Russia, like, let's put it this way: the money that Russia gained from trading with Europe, there is no country, single country, or many countries that can substitute for Russia this. We need to understand that Russia is not a diversified economy. It's gas and oil, mostly oil. And like there is a number, just a certain number of people and countries that are ready to buy Russian oil. And with the price cap put on the Russian asset, oil and gas, so I see what you're talking about, but also there is a big asterisk because Russia is not a country. It's a gas pump that is, what was it called? It's a glorified gas pump that's trying to act as one. So, as a, was it John McCain that said it? I believe. Any chance that Russian army will start offensive direction Lviv to cut Western supplies? Let's put it this way: can Russia start this? Yes. Will it succeed? No. Like, because Russia can do whatever the fuck they want. Like, if they want, they can now today, like, send all of their troops running straight, head straight into Kiev. But will it succeed? No, absolutely not. I have no idea where you got that shit about Maxim Katz. Yes, Russia is his homeland, but he does not at all think Russia should always be big brother to Ukraine or anyone. Have you not been listening what he was saying? Maybe stop eating up everything that he's saying and actually listen to what he's saying, his words. And you can also read his Twitter and so on. It's like, the fact is, like I've followed Maxim Katz at all. Like, so where I got his shit is like from his own speech. Like, this is him saying. So just, I don't know, watch him and listen to him. Like, listen to the words that are coming out of his mouth. It's like, he is supporting Ukraine, yes. But also when it comes to very specific issues, there is becoming an, okay, never mind. Fuck the Maxim Katz. Like, he's completely irrelevant to Ukraine question. Because he's not a politician. He's a YouTube personality. I've made already a huge rant about the Russian opposition. Watch my video about Russian opposition. If he's a YouTube personality, he's a YouTube personality. If he's a politician, he's a shit politician. Will Ukraine produce nukes if not admitted to NATO after the war? No, I don't think so. There's a lot of problems with nukes. Like, we need to understand that being a nuclear country comes with a lot of caveats. And I don't think that your English is terrific. Where did you learn? I did my bachelor and master's in English in Denmark. Randy Sinal, I heard Zelensky's politically in trouble because of his party's severe ongoing corruption. You heard wrong? Like, nice try, concerned troll. Fuck you. Like, who gives a shit? Like corruption, bitch, please. Every single political party is corrupt in one way or another. Well, okay, maybe some aren't. Like, name me a big prominent party and name me the one that doesn't have, if okay, I'm gonna say something. If a big dominant political party hasn't been in the political, isn't corrupt, that means only one thing, that hasn't been looked at close enough. There we go. This is my honest opinion on the state of politics and what the politics are in general. If you're saying that there is a political party that hasn't been corrupt, you are living in some other world, man. Like, I don't know, argue that against it. Like, otherwise I'm calling it like concerned trolling. Johnny H. Johns, can Europe reverse pump all their effort back to Russia via Nord Stream? Please tell me it's possible. For information, cuts is a soft propagandist. I mean, like, I've heard like even in Russian opposition, they cannot decide if they like or don't like cuts. Like, they argue about this all the time. So it's like, I mean, like, people that eat up cuts and what he says on YouTube, they haven't looked at his political career. They haven't looked at his, a lot of times. He is super big on YouTube. Because like, he's doing videos daily, which he has a very nice production value and so on. But when you look at his political career, when you look at his interaction with some other people, when you look at some of the debates that he's participated in, you kind of see a lot of the patterns that he's doing too. And I followed a lot of the things that he's doing because I was really hoping for the Russian opposition to work out at some point. And only at some point I just realized that liberal opposition does not mean anything in Russia. They are a fringe group. They are completely irrelevant to Russian political scenes. The only thing that they matter as is because there are a lot of Westerners and Western politicians and Western decision makers that think that Russian politician matters, which it doesn't. And that's the point that I'm trying to bring up. And they're trying to make sure that they matter because they are like, you know, we really want to believe that Russia will become democratic. But the two biggest powers right now in Russia is Putin's war machine and essentially his counterpart that says we need to be more fascist. That's the two biggest parties in Russia right now. So all of these liberal opposition, like from Russia, they actually doesn't matter. Like Dorsht, the biggest channel in Russia, essentially the opposition channel, is barely even watched. Like, they're horrendous. Their influence is really small. Russia gas station with nukes. Yes, thank you so much. That's the accurate quote. Mats B. Peterson. What country will give up their nuclear like the Ukrainian did after this? I don't think any will. I don't think that I don't think giving up nuclears was a correct way forward, and I think more countries will become nuclear after the war. But it was like kind of inevitable. I'll say it a different way. Russia political games only work when stronger countries don't respond. It's the same game as with the Cold War. Russians only respect strength. Yes, I mean like people say like, oh, Putin is looking for negotiations. Okay, we need to understand that Putin is essentially Gopnik. He's a bully, and in Gopnik's bully mind of his, like what's negotiations and a paper? It's suckers. It's like people who sign papers are suckers who you can later fuck with, because they will try to revert and try to act on this paper, but because they will try to do it, you will know like steps ahead how to fuck them up. So for Putin, any kind of negotiations where you don't put a lot of strength balance in is just a sucker's game. Like he's just like, look at these idiots buying my shit. White Lightning. Ritter is by far the most annoying Z-bot I've ever heard in my life. Probably. I mean, like I've heard so many Z-bots. There are so many on my every video. I try to ban them as much, please. I try to ban them as much as I can, but they are like so many. It's countless. I cannot do anything. Like it's always. I mean, like the funniest ones are like the ones that don't watch the video. And it's like they're pretty hilarious. In transparent societies, corruption is lower than societies that are opaque. Yes. Yes. What is the socioeconomic situation in Ukraine? Blackout situation, poverty, corruption, huge national debt, GDP, 2020 salary, civil servants. I mean, yes, like, okay. It's like Ukraine is in war. Like, it's war, dude. Like, what? Okay, it's concern trolling again. It said that some countries are worried about desperate moves from Russia when it or Putin feels cornered. What do you think about that? I mean, like the only like people that are telling you about this is nukes, because Russia has done everything beyond that. Russia escalated to the point where there is no more escalation. That's why like everyone is so confident Russia will lose. Well, most of the analysts, because Russia has used everything that it has and it didn't win and it cannot win. So, and we already know that Putin is too afraid for his own life that he will not use nukes, because every single person said that he won't. So there are only people that are afraid and cannot get over themselves, that are just like, oh, they're just worried because Russia is going to use nukes. But everything says that it won't. And I'm thinking that the last straw for the countries to understand will be Crimea, because Crimea is apparently like, people are so afraid that when Ukrainians are going to enter Crimea, oh, that Russia is going to use nukes. But it's been like, firstly, nukes doesn't solve anything for Russia. Like it doesn't solve problems. It just adds more of them. And secondly, Putin is really afraid for his own life. And he's been threatened directly, saying, it's like, if you use nukes, you're going to get ended. And he's very much afraid of that. We need to understand that it's not only Russia that is threatening people. We need to start threatening Russia as well. Like, find your balls. That's what I'm saying. Understand that Russia is a bully and understands only strength. And we need to show Russia strength. Why do you think Elon Musk is something taking pro-Russian stances? I mean, Elon Musk is a physical person. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. He can take whatever stances he wants. We're talking about Elon Musk's like okay, sure. People are over exaggerating the importance of Musk. He's a cult leader. Who cares? What do you think? Elon Musk is sometimes taking pro-Russian stances despite destroying his companies, making him look down. Does he know any leadership? To be honest, I don't really care. Like, I don't really care. Like, Elon Musk has all the money in the world. Like he can allow himself to be as funny or as not funny and dumb and whatever as he wants. He has all the money in the world. He's in the end game. It's like, have you ever played computer games where like you reach the max level and like you don't really know what to do anymore? So I think it's pretty much like Elon Musk has won capitalism, so now he's just like fucking around, and we're just like, oh my god, looking so deep down this mouth. And it's like, oh, what will he say next? And it's like, who gives a shit? Like he's fucking around. Do you think Sorovikin will work through his playback until he gets the chemical weapons? Maybe. I don't think so. Chemical weapons, as the same as nuclear weapons, do not solve anything for Russia. Celestine Kamas, is there opposition party or media in Ukraine? Is peace movement allowed in Ukraine? Oh my god, that's the same guy trolling. Okay, I am banning because he's like that's the worst kind of trolls. That's like the stupidest. It's like they're trying to be sounding so smart. I was like, but is there opposition in Ukraine? Yeah, fucktard. Fritz, I see. Yeah, I mostly thought of nukes too, and I kind of doubt that people in the command share would eventually follow a nuke order. It's like if like let's put it this way, like if Putin gives nuke orders, there will be a nuke strike. But the problem is it doesn't solve anything for Russia, and it's a direct threat to Putin's personal life. And again, Putin is a coward, and he is very much afraid for his own personal life. Like Putin's biggest dream is to be eternal forever. Like I'm not sure if you followed or not, but he really wants to essentially live forever. Like he's obsessed with physical life, an extension of his life. He wants to be like eternal Putin, but like getting a nuclear strike is a threat to his physically, because remember he still can pull out. Like he only wants to be also like Putin's a great. But if it's going to come to like his life or pulling out of Ukraine, he's still going to choose his life. I'm pretty much certain about this. Putin doesn't sit near windows. Yes. Yes. John H. Johnson. He was talking about Scott Ritter, the pedophile, Russian paid propagandist. My favorite is HIMARS expert Steven Seagal. Yes. Yeah, yeah. Scott Ritter, I haven't followed them. Like, I mean, like most of the Russians, like if you follow like so pro-Russian journalists, like most of them are super super fucking fringe. Like when you start looking into their biographies, they are like crazy 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 people. Like most of them are really crazy people. Tucker Carlson. I mean, I've described this a lot. Like there are three types of people that support Russia in this war after Bucha, after everything. So the first part is people are fucking dumb. Like the people that are beyond understanding what is good, evil, what is even like reality. It's like all of these like people that don't even understand what is humanity anymore. And actually like a lot of these like pro peace people that's like give peace a chance also go into this bunch. Like all of these ideas that's like, oh, in this war there are two parties that are fighting. Like yeah, it's like you completely like forgot what does humanity even mean. You are so beyond understanding good and evil, it's not even funny. Then there are the second part type of people which are just evil. It's people that are either fascists and they're malicious and they perceive what Russia is doing and they are supporting it. So it's the people that are actually one of the most honest ones, to be honest, in this conflict. It's people that at least like you cannot maybe support, like, but at least they're honest. It's like all of the far right, far left, fascist or like communist Nazis, whatever. It's like all of these like tankies, whatnot. It's like people that are like pro-Russian because Russia, great nation. I love Russia. Like they're doing right. They need to destroy Ukraine because and then they put reasons what like they just don't want to. But like they are at least clear in their positions and so on. And they are just evil, and those are just evil people, and that's why I don't I don't want to interact with them, period, because these people, they want to destroy democracy. These people, they want essentially me dead because my opinion is different from theirs. They are the people that would bring the second Hitler, if they would have the ability. And then there is the third people, and the third people are just malicious. Those are the people that are understanding what Russia is doing. They are the people that are understanding the situation, and they're understanding it so well enough that they're trying to extract their own benefits. They're either trying to get it for popularity, for money, for power, for clout, and so on. They might not support Russia personally, right? They might not really care about what Russia is doing and so on, but they want to extract their own benefits. And that's the third kind of people. I I'm not certain if Tucker Carlson is either of these three, but to be honest, it's like trying to sort out pieces of shit. Oh, this one is a little bit rounder than the other one. It's still just the same shit. Uh, okay, let's see. Nicholas Crooks, I wonder how many seasons it will be before fields are demined enough for farmers to safely use their fields. Thoughts? Well, if I can judge by the Second World War and Latvia, for example, Latvia was a major battlefield for both armies. Uh, Latvia has had mines found throughout the first like 20, 30 years. And then like we've been finding mines and unexploded munition storages even in the 2000s. So that was like what, almost 50 years, like over 50 years after the war. So it's gonna get like probably like almost century, like I think like decade easily decade, maybe couple decades. It's gonna be a while. Tosun Abi, will Russians hand Putin to the West and other responsible in exchange for ease of sanctions, like Serbia handed Slobodan Milosevic to Hague to fix your relationship? It's a possibility. It's one of the potential options. Will Russia use nerve gas in the next offensive? Russia doesn't use like Russian troops are not trained and they do not have any military grade chemical weapons on their doctrine. So for Russia to use chemical weapons, they cannot use it near their own troops, or it's like, well, I mean, like they can, but making sure it's going to be part of the offensive, probably not. Do you think when Putin dies, they will stuff him like Lenin and Stalin and put them on display in a red square? It's maybe like, I mean, Russians are like necrophiliacs, so I mean, not necrophiliacs, but they really like all these dead people. Adamantium, thank you so much. Like, oh my god, you subscribed and you give 10 subscribers. That is too good to be true. Welcome aboard. Thank you so much. I appreciate every one of you. Frostflake. Okay, let's. Are we pushing 3 hours today? I guess we're pushing 3 hours. Fuck it. Let's. We're talking. It's gonna be a long stream. I thought it's gonna be a 1 hour stream, like it was midweek, but I'm on vacation, so why not? Maybe it's gonna be one of the last streams before New Year's. Who knows? Hope not. Georgie, how many of Putin's nukes work? Don't know. Tritium maintaining is expensive, needs to be maintaining weapons, very likely sold to industry for big bucks. Potentially, yes. Like, especially after we saw the corruption in the Russian army, no one knows. Maybe the nuclear forces have been resold already. Well, I wouldn't bet on it, but it's possible. It's possible. Putin switched to Linux. He's so scared, and his memorial will be chained of pubic lavatories. one in every city so that anyone can express themselves in the obvious ways. Hey, in Russia, having a lavatory in the city, that's a high standard you're putting for the Russian cities there. Derek, Elon is superficially fair, but the problem is that he doesn't understand issue deeply. But I still respect him for connecting the Ukrainian military up with Starlink on the first day. Derek, I'm not sure you can call me out on this, but I'm not sure it was Elon that done it. I think it was a private contract that was just negotiated. I don't think it was Elon that has done it personally. So correct me on that, please, in the chat. Like, Ellie, what the fuck is a tanky? A tanky is essentially a far left communist, not communist, like a super far left, like essentially like a people that like Stalin. Like think Stalin. So like solve problem, never mind. Let's just send tanks in, and they will take care of any problems. So hence the word tanky. Okay, let's see. Conjure Dynamics, thanks for $1. Appreciate it. Would Ukraine welcome tourists after victory? I think yes. I mean, like Ukraine has been a very peaceful country. It was an amazing country for tourism, for visiting, for travel. Of course, Ukrainians are amazing people. Of course, they would welcome tourists. Like they would welcome anyone. They welcomed everyone. Like they called Russian brothers for a long time, and then like despite all the abuse in the past that was happening between the two countries. So Ukrainians are really, 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 really good people. If when Russia breaks up into smaller countries, each entity potentially will have a large nuclear arsenal trying to survive within unstable breakup. So the problem with nukes, they need to be maintained. They're extremely expensive and they're extremely hard to maintain. And if you don't maintain, they're going to start polluting everything with nuclear waste around the silos. So smaller country might not have the resources to maintain them. So there's a big possibility that the smaller countries will decide to give up nukes or at least make sure they're maintained by some other third party. Max Carpenter Love Dogs. Georgie, people had chores, came back, and you folks are still here. This is fantastic. Very interesting question from this community. I mean, like, there is a lot of very good questions, and it's been like only one concern troll so far. So I am, as I said, like I planned this stream for just 1 hour, and now I'm here speaking for already 2.5, and I guess we're gonna push it to 3, but we're gonna be done in 3, guys. So it's now 2 hours 36 minutes, so 24 minutes. And maybe last stream of the year. Mr. Nick, what about artillery ammunition for Ukraine, Russia? So people saying Russia is starved for ammunition, I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's more of a problem of logistics. This is where the actual problem of logistics is actually hitting Russia the most, because Ukraine has been hitting Russian logistics, and it's now deteriorating to the point that it's becoming really, really tough for Russians to supply logistics for their offensives. But they still have enough weapons to make defensive actions. Taz, there is a forest in Lithuania that has loads of mines after World War II. Yeah, okay, still. So you still some has forests. BLP Iraq. Or BLP Rock, thank you so much for $10. Russia probably doesn't have enough money to maintain all their nukes. Russia has a lot of money. Like Russia, like okay, we as Europeans have been paying Russia super profits for decades, so they have money. We made sure that they have the money. Grex Z1. Would Ukraine welcome tourists? Okay, already read this one. Raymond May, Engels means Russia can be freely attacked by the West. Yes, I already said this I think like a couple of months ago. I said it in my last video, but yeah, Russian air defense is not capable. Like if it's having troubles finding out the modernized Ukrainian Soviet type time drones, which are huge, how are they going to notice the fucking stealth bombers? How? Like when Russia will realize that they're being attacked, it's already going to be too late. Like Russia is so incredibly obsolete. We just cannot understand just like how obsolete they are. You know, when we saw pictures from the like Russian villages that don't have toilets or whatever, or sewer systems in them, and we were like, ha ha ha, wow, Russia is so bad. It's the same thing, only with weapons as well. Like they have not, like Russia is not the Soviet Union. Have you noticed that how little there are actual equipment that is like modern Russian? Like Russian tanks that are modern Russian tanks are modernized mostly based on the Western technologies. Like it's the technologies that we've been providing to Russia. Their own development, their own systems are complete shit. Like they don't produce, they don't manage anything their own. So whatever their systems they're having is probably what they were able to buy from the West. So we know what they're having. They don't have their own developments that would be able to detect the bombers for which technology they didn't have. So that's why I'm like, wow, like Russia is not much more better than essentially what we saw about their villages. It's literally like a whole century behind, like maybe half a century behind. It's like literally like it's a forgotten civilization that just had a lot of legacy stuff from the superpower on which bones it was built, and now it's trying to throw around all of that superpower might that they used to have. Well, not they, but the country that was before them used to have, and they're trying to imagine themselves that, but they're not. It's like Italy suddenly saying that they're Roman Empire and trying to essentially go and make legions of their population. But it's not the Roman Empire. It's not the ancient times anymore. That's the whole point. And that's what Ukraine is proving to Russia, that it's delusional and that people that are living inside Russia are also delusional. And we've been delusional believing that they are. Like we were like looking at them saying is like, well, Italy is located where Roman Empire was located, therefore Italy is also now Roman Empire because they've put Roman like I don't know, like let's put it Roman anthem or and like Roman attire is now being used, and now they're doing this. Oh, that means that they're now Roman Empire. Well, it's like no, the time has passed for it. Flying Cloud Circus, thanks so much for £2. I appreciate it. All right. In real life, I rarely agree with anyone. You're my first. Thanks, Kellen. Like, I really appreciate. Like, seriously, I do appreciate. We had already this discussion. I really appreciate you agreeing with me and so on. But if you don't agree with me, that is fine too. That is democracy. I love democracy. I am gonna fight and defend so people can disagree with me because that's the power of democracy. Do you watch the interviews of the orc pals made by Zolkin on YouTube? Not really. I don't find them helpful. Firstly, because people in captivity will say anything, right? Despite I know Zolkin says like, oh, we're not pressuring you to do anything, yada, 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 and so on. But like, I don't feel that they are representatives. As representative. Also, there are many cases when people, for example, come to the Zolkin interview, say one thing, and then they cross Russian border and they say completely other thing. So which position was the honest one? Like people say, oh, it's like, oh, obviously Zolkin's position, like when he was talking at Zolkin's was the honest one. I was like, why do you think so? Why would the same person that would just get to Russia and start saying the other stuff, is now saying is like, but what he was talking to Zolkin, then he was telling the truth, and now he's lying. That so I don't find a lot of them helpful, and also they're super long. And yeah, so whenever there are facts that coming out of that, usually people start discussing it, and I sometimes read comments where people tag certain parts. So that's it. Matthew, Matthew, Weissen. Oh my God, I'm butchering. Vicendis, Weissendice. I don't know. Sorry, man, for butchering a name. Perun's analysis on the Russian military budget, corruption, and Vranyo is excellent. Mussolini thought he'd recreate the Roman Empire. Yeah, pretty much. Kantinudan, can you ask your government to make it easier to export vehicles? I spent the last 3 nights cutting red tape on 2 vehicles for Ukrainian army. I like to sleep when it's dark here. I'm not sure how me asking Danish government would help to do anything. I'll maybe write to my local representative in Denmark, but I cannot promise anything. Phil Lee, tritium is pretty much the most expensive substance on Earth. To the temptation to flog it off instead of replacing is like triggers massive many super yachts. Yeah, I'm pretty sure like a lot of these super yachts are based on the Russian nuclear assets, or used to. Where is Ukraine matters based off? Denmark. Derek, the media story said that Elon called Zelensky on the first day of the war and offered Starlink for free 3 months ago. He complained that everyone was making billions, but not him. Zelensky? Not making billions? Well, that's bad. He should be making a lot of billions. He's the best thing that happened to the world in a while. Though I do disagree with Zelensky on a lot of his things. But in a slice of war, things simplify. I'm pretty sure once the war is over, I can bitch about Zelensky and his policies a lot. But I'm pretty sure Zelensky will step down. He already stated so much. He complained that he was being penalized for his charitable move at the beginning of the war. Ah, that one. Yeah. But again, like I don't follow Musk that much. Like he's a man child. He gets things done. Like he got some goodwill for popularizing electric cars, but yeah, I don't know. People give him a lot of credits. I know he has a lot of like he has a cult like following, which I don't approve. It's like I let's put it this way. Elon Musk hasn't done or said something that I valued to the development of humanity for a long time for me, in my sake. And that his little achievements in popularizing electric cars and promoting space flight, again, that's nice. But I mean, he has so much money that I would expect him to do a lot more, and he didn't. So with a lot of money, in my book, comes a lot of responsibility, and his contributions compared to his wealth are negligible. In your opinion, how significant is Bakhmut for Russia, and is there a strategic win for them to get easy to Kramatorsk, or just a propaganda win? It's complete propaganda win. There is no easy road to Kramatorsk. John H. Jones, it must be getting low when they sought 122mm from Pakistan and 152mm from North Korea. The US has spent 60 billion per annum on nukes. That's 80% of Russia's total defense budget. Yes. The theory that I read from the analysts is that by trying to buy the ammunition from other countries, Russia was trying to deny this ammunition to Ukraine. That's the theory that I read. And as for spending on nukes, yes, but we also need to see that a lot of Russian, essentially, labor is a lot cheaper. Russia doesn't spend as much money on labor It just like because the Russian system is not so dependent on wages. Okay. If you go to Oslo, the beer is on me. I've been to Oslo. The beer there is great. Extremely expensive though, but would be nice. Great stream, and I always watch you videos, but unfortunately, I have to go now. Carry on the great work, my workshop adventure. Thank you so much for joining us up. Like, I mean, like we're 1,014 people. I'm surprised how stable we've been for almost 3 hours, guys. I am really appreciative of every single one of you. Like, I am saying this every time, and I will not stop saying it every time because, like, this is what matters. Like the ad revenue, the subscription, patrons, everything nice. Don't get me wrong. It's all cool, but the most important thing is that I'm able to say it and I'm able to deliver the message, and we keep in the loops, and like willingly or unwillingly, like when we talk to some people that we know, we start spending like we start elevating the idea that's like, hey, you know, this thing, that war in Ukraine is still happening, is still important, because the worst thing that can happen to Ukrainian war is that we stop caring, and because it's in our own personal security interests. I am so motivated, not only because I love Ukraine. Obviously, yeah, it's nice. Ukraine is a great country. I love the people, and but there is a huge moral aspect for both me personally and as an ask for democracies. So that's why I am really happy that we don't allow this topic to be phased out by any other BS. And we still kind of keep on the point, even if it's not the topic number one. I know for a lot of countries it's not. I think a lot of Shell's 1967. I think a lot of Russians Air Force was made in Ukraine and the other Warsaw Pact countries. Yes, you are absolutely correct. A lot of the, for example, strategic bombers that Russia is using to fire Ukraine are irreplaceable. They don't produce them. They cannot produce them. So whenever one of them gets destroyed, it's gone forever. And there's like only a handful of them. Phil Lee, give it a month or two, and Russia will feel threatened if Liechtenstein, Andorra, or the Isle of Man declare war on them. Oh yeah, absolutely. Hicksant, they say different in Orkstan because they are afraid being an encounter with a sledgehammer. Yeah, potentially. I'm not sure what this was referring to, but I guess. Nat Cole, can you comment on the ties between Give Peace a Chance across the world and the regional communists abroad? How do they get their resources? I mean, people love to support the causes they believe in, right? So there are also people that have resources and they can pool resources to to make some kind of activity. So a lot of it is also obviously supplemented by Russia. I mean, give peace a chance. Like, give peace a chance is a nice slogan. It's a nice thing to put on the poster, right? Like, think about it this way. Wouldn't we all want like to live in a world where there is no wars and we are peaceful and yada yada and flowers and sunshine and whatever? The problem is when it starts being like, when you start looking at reality. Because when you say at a war is like, well, let's already ranted about this a little bit a while ago, so I will not go again into the rant about why it's bad and why is it inhumane. But when you start saying is like, well, we just need to forgive genocide and we just need to, you know, allow the countries to go, then you say like, okay, but do we live in a law-abiding society, just society? Because total forgiveness and and uh, and how do we say, and just society. So do you want to live in a just society or do you want to live in all forgiving society? Let me see what it explains. So imagine both societies. So on all forgiving societies, if a person, let's take, don't want to go into murder, let's take something like, let's go, yeah, child slaughter. For some reason, a person kills a child. I'm still going to murder. I cannot get over it. It's like, okay, whatever. Okay, steals candy from a child. Like a person steals candy from a child. So in all forgiving society, you say, okay, we forgive you. So in that sense, the person had done something that was not nice, and he was forgiven for it. That's the all forgiveness society. And then we have the just society. The just society says, okay, you did something bad. Now there needs to be a justifiable retribution for what you've done. You need to be essentially put into the situation that you are paying for what you've done. And those two are complete opposite. You cannot have one or another. In most of the justice systems, it's basically a balance and it's a scale between the two, right? You can have the just society where you say essentially an eye for an eye. But the problem is that at that moment, it turns into vengeful society. And that is really bad for societal health. Because worst case scenarios is, for example, if you have a fake claim someone, then you can get unjust decisions. So say a person, for example, lost a hand in a car accident, and then he says, oh, this actually because I don't know, this guy chopped off my hand. And then the other person, like in this society, to be completely 100% just, you say, okay, we're going to chop the other guy's hands as well. That's a little bit problematic. That's why we go into okay, maybe we should go in a little bit more forgiveness and maybe not give too much credit and maybe not go completely. So, for example, if someone kills someone, let's not maybe end people's lives, because then the person might be a situation when people did actually kill people, and we cannot really resurrect people back if we were falsely accused. So that's why it's okay, let's make a life prison sentence, for example. But then there are societies that started looking at it as does this even work? Like maybe having an all forgiving society or close to it is really nice, because then we think about, okay, how do we maybe prevent people from doing stuff? Like, how do we prevent people from doing stuff? And we just get a society that is more forgiving, and we forgive stuff. We don't have to forgive stuff because people just don't do bad stuff. And then when you get something like a Nordic model, where people, instead of being punished for their societies, the focus is on reintegration them into the society. And that also moves the justice closer to forgiveness scale. So when we say give peace a chance, we are asking for a full-fledged forgiveness for any kind of injustice. And in our history as the world, in our own societies, we found out that it's not an obtainable aspect, because then the people that were executed upon unjustly, they don't get retribution. And we cannot do that. That's just not how the world that we live in works, or in my perspective should work, because that's different thing. So I feel that we need to have justification. We need to have benefits for the countries that don't do bad things, so they get preferences. And the countries like Russia that completely spit on any kind of justice should be punished. And they should be punished according to this. Does that mean that we need to kill as many Russians and torture as many Russians as they killed and tortured Ukrainians? No. But there needs to be a punishment in place. And giving peace a chance is just neglecting that for all of the victims that suffered because of the war enforced on them. Wow, that's the second rant about the same topic. I can do it all day, guys. All day rants. Holy shit. I appreciate you as much, but it seems that I'm really, really already losing it. Like I'm talking out of my head. I'm trying to put together thoughts and so on, and I'm hoping I'm not boring you way too much. But I think it was a great stream. I will. Oh man, so many good questions after that. Yeah, but I need to wrap it up, guys. Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. Again, thank you so much. 50K subs. That is an amazing effort. Like, thank you so much for your major support for this channel. I really appreciate when you leave comments under videos. I read comments as much as I can under every video. I will see if I can make another stream before New Year's, but cannot promise anything. So if we don't see each other eye to eye next time, or sorry, not eye to eye, it's wrong expression. I mean, if we don't see each other like live anymore, please, please, please have a great and happy New Year. And we'll see each other some other time. I'll hope I will release a video before that though. Slava Ukraini, and I'll see you guys next time.